We can't hear on this end. I don't know if you guys are saying anything.
Okay, no problem. Morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Dysart's council meeting, November 26th. And we'll start off with Mallory reading the land acknowledgement.
Sounds good. We respectfully acknowledge that Dysart et al. Is located on the Treaty 20 Michi-Saagiig territory in the traditional territory of the Michi-Saagiig and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations, and we thank these nations for their care and stewardship as they pass through these lands.
Thank you. Could I have a resolution for the adoption of the agenda?
Yeah, I'll read that. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al., held on November 26, 2024, be approved as presented.
Okay. Mover and a seconder, Pat, and a mover, Pat, and Tammy second.
Perfect.
Is there any disclosure of peculiar interest?
Yeah, I do, Walt. File number RO 2024-011 and file number LO 2024-004. I have a direct conflict. I'm the owner of the company that's been hired to install the septic system.
Okay, thank you. We'll also have a resolution for the adoption of the regular council meeting on October 22nd.
Sure. Be it resolved that Council approves the October 22nd, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as circulated.
Mover and a seconder, Carm and Pat. Carm and Pat. We have no report today for the mayor and deputy mayor. We'll have Tamara or Mallory read the public meetings. Oh,
Sure, I'll read the resolution to go into public meeting. So be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the regular meeting of council at 9:06 a.m. To proceed into public meeting to consider zoning bylaw amendment file D14-ZB-2024-010 lands at Emerson and Parsons.
okay. And we have Chris and Jeff coming on this file.
We just need a mover and a seconder for that resolution.
Sorry about that. Mover to second. We'll have Barry moving. Tammy, second. Okay. So take Jeff and Chris. Is this over to you, please?
Yep, not a problem. So I'll take this. So this is the public meeting portion of the council. Good morning and welcome. The public meeting for November 26, 2024 will now come in order. A notice to all those in attendance that this meeting will be live streamed to YouTube and recorded. Please note that the recording will be linked to the municipal website. The purpose of the public meeting is to present planning application in a planning form as required by the Planning Act. This is a public meeting to consider one proposed zoning amendment to the Dysart et al. Zoning bylaw 2005-120. It is council's responsibility to consider all information received to date regarding the applications and to hear and consider any views you may have about the application. Every person present or registered will have the opportunity to ask questions about the proposal and voice their opinion regarding the same. Please state your name and relation to the application prior to speaking. Each person will have 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. Please direct all your questions and comments to the chair. Please restrict your comments to planning matters only. After this public meeting is over, council will make a recommendation as to whether or not the proposed zoning amendment should be passed. Council's recommendation will then be considered during the regular meeting of council. Once council has made the decision on the proposed amendment, notice will be circulated as per the Planning Act. All those persons who have who have given the municipality written notice that they would like to receive notice of the decision will receive a copy of the decision. You must make this request in writing to the municipality. The Planning Act specifies that if a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the municipality of Dysart at all before the proposed bylaws pass, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the municipality to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added to a party to the appeal unless the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. We will now commence the public meeting as per the agenda. And the application on the agenda is file D14-ZB 2024-010, Lands of Emerson and Parsons. Planning will now give a brief overview of the purpose and effect of the proposed amendment. So the purpose of the application would change the zoning of the subject property from rural type 1 zone and environmental protection zone to rural residential exception zone and rural type 2 zone and environmental protection zone in order to permit permanent rural residential use on the severed lots, implement the required front lot line setback for rural residential, and further delineate the environmental protection zone boundary and buffers as delineated by the supporting environmental impact study that was submitted in support of the application and the concurrent severance application for the subject lands. All neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands and appropriate agencies have been circulated for comment on November 5th, 2024. The required advertisement was circulated and put in the local newspaper as per the Planning Act requirements, and to date, no comments have been received. The recommendation of the application is that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the Dysart et al. Official plan, is appropriate and represents good planning, and staff recommend that council approve the bylaw. So the applicants or agents in attendance, if they wish to explain their proposal, which I don't think there are any in attendance today, or is there? Oh, there is.
Yes, hi. Good morning. Yes, so I'm Michelle. I'm a junior planner with DM Wills in Peterborough. I'm acting as the applicant on behalf of the owners of the Emerson lands located on the east side of Old Donald Road. The subject property is approximately 35.6 hectares with approximately 430 meters of frontage, and there are 3 existing entrances servicing the property. It is currently undeveloped and has significant coverage of natural features, including woodlands and wetlands. So the proposed application seeks to amend the Municipality of Dysart et al. Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2005-120 as a condition of provisional consent approval. So we did have a chance to review staff's report and would like to just provide a slight overview. As noted by staff as well as provided by the report, the amendment seeks to address the deficient lot area and frontage as a result of the consents in order to bring the severed and retained parcels into compliance with the zoning bylaw, as well as to delineate the existing environmental features to the environmental zone. So currently there is zoned rural type 1 and environmental protection according to Schedule A, Map 2. The current rural type 1 zone requires 20 hectares of lot area and 180 meters of lot frontage. Given the insufficient lot area and lot frontage of both the severed and retained lands, a zoning bylaw amendment is proposed to rezone a portion of both the severed and retained lands from rural type 1 to the environmental protection zone. This will recognize the wetlands, watercourses, and the buffers to these features so that they will be protected from development and site alteration. This zoning bylaw amendment also proposes to rezone the retaining lands from rural type 1 to rural type 2 to recognize the deficient lot area and frontage being 19 hectares and 140 meters. Regarding the severed lots, A and B, they will be amended to rezone from rural type 1 to rural residential. Lot A is 7.8 hectares with 161 meters of frontage, and Lot B is 7.5 hectares with 130 meters of frontage. I'm available to answer any questions council or public has submitted any.
Council, have any questions?
Think so. All, that sounds like all the studies have been done and the staff's recommended to go ahead with it. Sounds okay to me.
Okay. Mallory, you'll have a resolution, please?
Sure. Be it resolved that the report for file number D14-ZB-2024-010 Emerson and Parsons, which consists of Part Lot 6, Concession 3, 19R-5079, in the geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al., be received for information, and that council directs a bylaw be brought forward for consideration during its November 26, 2024 regular meeting, and that council recommends that the bylaw be approved.
Sorry, Mel, if I could just jump in, because I'm not in the room, is there anybody that from the public that wishes to speak? I don't think there is, but just want to confirm.
No, there isn't.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
So,
So I just need a mover and seconder for that
move to
resolution.
seconder. We'll have Carm and Barry,
Perfect.
and now we'll go back into the regular meeting.
Yep, so I'll read the resolution for that. So be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the public meeting at 9:15 a.m. and reconvenes the regular meeting of council.
Thank you. We have a delegation.
Oh, well, sorry, I just need the mover and seconder for
Oh,
that.
sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, mover, Pat and Barry.
Perfect.
Okay, and we have one delegation today from the Legion, Mike Waller. Would like to come up, Mike, please? Yeah.
Good morning. My name's, for those who don't know me, I'm Mike Waller. I'm the president of the Halliburton Legion. I have a few things for the council to consider. One is the accessible parking lot in front of the Legion. We have one now. I would ask the council to put two more there on the east side of the ramp. Our aging community is, as you know, is getting bigger. And we need the spots for, we have a lot of programs that we, Triple HS have come and they do falls prevention and other things to help the people. And I think just with our aging community, we could use the extra two. The one that's there, I would like it marked off, say 20 feet and then yellow lines put there to prevent people from double parking there and blocking the driveway. If that's possible, I would like that. So that's the first one. The second one is because of the aging population and just people in general, I would like to have a crosswalk put in. I know it's not the town's duty to do this. And I know it's MTOs, but I think a recommendation from the council would go a long way to put a crosswalk in from the municipal parking lot that's here to the Legion, because there's nothing, there's nowhere for people to cross. And it's almost like playing Frogger, trying to get across from across the road with the traffic that comes by. I just think it would be a safer area, and I'd hate to see somebody get hit. And like I say, with our aging community and the programs that the Legion's providing for everyone, there's a lot of people using walkers and canes and whatnot, just trying to get across. So I'd like the recommendation from the council for that, for the MTO. That would be helpful to us. The third thing I would like is, I guess back in 2004, the Legion was designated an emergency shelter. So the people of Dysart would be coming to the Legion if there was any emergency. The problem is we need a generator, and I think the town should I would like the town to take some responsibility in providing that or helping us provide that for the health and safety of the community. We hope that it never happens. The emergency preparedness though is essential, and I just the last time we looked there, we've got a quote for a generator. I've talked to Pat a little bit about it. I was thinking propane. He talked me into doing a diesel just because of the amount of access to diesel fuel that's in the area. The generator itself is around $50,000, and then there's the hookup to go with that also. But I would just like the council to have a look at it and hopefully help us through that process to become a full emergency shelter, which we've been designated. So I just would like that at all. The other thing I have, the last thing I have is it's close to Remembrance Day. Other communities around the area have put up banners on the poles of fallen vets, and as part of the Legion, I think we should be doing the same. I know there's a lot of red tape with, you know, who owns the pole, who owns this and that. That's just part of it. But I would like the council to recommend that we go forward and place banners on the poles for remembrance during either the 2 weeks before and a week after type thing, that we get it through and celebrate our veterans that give us the freedom that we have. I know it's a process to do. I've talked to some people that have done it in Coal Hill area, and it is quite a process, but we're willing to do that if the council is willing to give us the real estate on the poles. So thank you very much.
Hey, just wait, Mike. Yeah, I think all your things are very reasonable. And needless to say, I'm just speaking for myself, but I'm very passionate about the Legion in our past. And to me, one day a year is just not enough. And we definitely have to be recognizing all the people that sacrifice their lives and all the hard work that all you Legionnaires do. But regard to the parking spots, I think that, in my opinion, we definitely will. I would vote for one for sure, and maybe even two. That and in regard to the crosswalk, I think we could definitely write a letter if that would help. But that is a provincial highway out there. But we'll try to do our part there for sure.
Thank you.
And in regard to the generator, I firmly believe that it's something that could be used for sure, and it's a positive for the Legion and for the area. And I think that our staff could look in and get maybe applying for a grant for you.
Okay, that'd be wonderful.
And in regard to your last request, as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see. I love your idea about the banners, and I'd like to see it. I agree, for 2 weeks before and the whole month of November. Up just like the flag should be up for lest we forget. So that's just my opinion, council. So anybody else have anything else to say?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Everything you said there, Walt. The crosswalk, the MTO, I'm full support of that. I like the idea of the red and white crossings that are popping up all over Ontario too.
Those are fantastic.
I think that would be neat to come across, neat and respectful to come across the Legion in that manner. And of course, like Walt said, it's a process with the MTO, but an endorsed letter saying it's a safety issue that might get some traction there for sure. The banners on the poles, we talked about this BAA. I brought up the BAA last year about that, and I you know, for myself anyway, different angles to do that in regards if we use the existing banner poles that are out there now for their seasonal stuff. If we could get the pictures of fallen veterans, like I would pay for my poster.
Yeah.
And then we collectively come up with an idea how we're gonna fund getting them up, getting them down. To me, I don't think that's a big deal, but I'll maybe bring that up at the BIA next too, and see if there's a framework there on that note. So
That'd be great, Pat. Thanks
because
so much.
Bancroft does it too, and they got
Yeah.
some pretty sharp posters. out there.
It's, well, all around, like even Apsley and like I say, Coal Hill and
Yeah.
Bancroft, and there's a few in Uxbridge and stuff, and It's fantastic. It's a great way of celebrating our veterans.
You bet. And then again, echoing Walt's comments here, I think that a full month on the pole in terms of flags and respect out of our veterans and everybody else is definitely, we wouldn't have what we have today if it wasn't for it. So
That's right.
Anyway.
And the Legion would be willing to store the banners too, so that's no problem. I know the families pay for the picture and the banner, and the Legion would be willing to store them for that's wonderful.
I got another quick one too.
There. Okay.
Yeah, it all sounds really good to me. I've spent a lifetime at the rink, both, on the ice myself and with all my kids growing up. So it's always been a concern for me about the kids crossing the street. Not, coming from that rink, I've worried about it all my life. Luckily, I don't think anything's ever happened, but I can see it sometime happening. So I just wanted to throw that in too. That's not all for you guys at the Legion too, but I just wanted to make sure
No,
that's an idea there, a good idea for the rink too.
yeah, it's good for the community, right?
I wonder if we could write a resolution. This is often how local councils do it. So that we recommend that the Ministry of Transportation install a crosswalk on Highway 118 between the Haliburton Legion and the AJ Liu Arena Municipal Parking Lot, and then that it be directed to the Minister's office. Does that sound like a good idea?
That's fine, Mallory. Council
Okay.
for that?
So that's one thing. The other things, and I'll get Tamara to add in as well. So for the accessible parking spots, perhaps staff returning with a report on that would be appropriate. And then there's the generator that we can look for. That's no problem. Looking for grants. The other thing is the polls, and I'm not sure what staff would return on that one, Tamara, and I'm not sure if you have thoughts on that.
Well, we would talk with that with the park staff because they're most familiar
Okay.
with the banner program, so we can review that and get back to you on that. I know we
Perfect.
started years ago, we looked at doing something like this, and I don't know if it was timing of getting them done or something, but it fell apart, but there was a previous effort. Yeah.
So that was the resolution then, Mallory?
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna note, because there's several parts, so I'm gonna note in the minutes where we're gonna return, staff are gonna return with several things, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the resolution about the crosswalk so that we can send it along to the ministry. So I'll read it now. Be it resolved that Dysart Council recommends that the Ministry of Transportation install a crosswalk on Highway 118 between the Haliburton Legion and the AJ LaRue Arena Municipal Parking Lot, and further directs that this resolution be forwarded to the Minister's office.
A mover and a seconder? Barry and Carm?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thank you. Next, we have the fire department report, but I believe Dan's away, so everybody had a chance to look at it. Anybody have any questions? Okay, we'll have a resolution.
I'll
Please.
read the resolution. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the fire department report for October 2024.
Have a mover and a seconder, please. Carm and Tammy. Okay. Next, we have a report from the Parks Recreation events.
Dan had one more, and it was just, I'll explain it. It's just to authorize their communications services, fire communication services. They are looking into a different one, but they have to renew this agreement. So it's just a bylaw to remove their call-out services for now.
Okay, great.
So I can read that resolution if you'd like.
Sure, please do. Thank you.
Okay. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-106, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with His Majesty the King and the right of the province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Health for the provision of fire communication services by Lindsay Central Ambulance Communication Center, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover and a seconder. Carm and Pat. Thank you. And now we'll have a report from Andrew Mueller on the Parks Recreation events. Oh, okay.
So I think for this one, Murray asked that it be put on the agenda for discussion, and it's about possibly removing the rink that's located at 76 Maple Avenue, just because parking is tight in town. So that's just something for council to discuss and let staff know what they think on that.
Okay, does anybody like to start off?
Yeah, when do you want to start? Yeah, no, I'm all for it. Well, with changing climate and we used to have skateboard rigging in there at one point, which we've now got a skateboard park. And you see the odd person in there, but it's kind of underutilized on that note. And anyways, could definitely use it for parking, whether it's for the getting the library or the park or the farmer's market or what have you. I think it's a great thing. And my own opinion too is if there's a switch and there's public outcry for it, we could also put it behind the library, and they got hydro and water and everything there to support it if necessary in the future. It's my own opinion, but
Yes, Barry?
Yeah, we definitely need the parking. I don't know, I guess maybe Andrea could tell us how much it's getting. I don't know if it gets used a lot or doesn't get used a lot or whatever, but if there's a possibility of moving it into the park area, then we should look at that, the rink, but definitely need the parking there, 100%.
Carm? Good. Yeah. My opinion is, I agree with agreeable, like Pat says, maybe moving it someplace else, and what Barry said. I think it's such a great little rink there, and you never know, hockey might come back big like it used to be around here. And to buy those boards, it costs a lot of money today, and so store them somewhere for a while, and eventually sometime we'll be able to maybe rebuild the project and let the kids have a good time. So great. So sorry, Nancy, go ahead, Nancy.
I totally agree. We need the parking, but I would like to move the rink and not just take it away to create the parking. I think if we're going to create the parking, we need to provide that rink in another space that's available to the public.
I agree. But
again, not to be contradictory, but if we talk to Andrea to see how many people actually use it, I don't know if it makes sense to rebuild it if nobody's using it on that note. That's my own opinion, but anyway. It's storing the boards, definitely on that note, but I don't know if we need to go out and spend another $50,000 in subgrade stuff, but.
One comment might be that we're in the middle of the parks master plan as well, so that could be something
Sure.
that's considered through that process as well.
And yeah, good idea.
I'll
And
make
fund
note
it
of
that
that.
way too.
I'll make a note of that.
any other comments? Okay, the resolution.
Okay, so I have a resolution to remove the outdoor ice rink. So be it resolved, the council directs staff to remove the outdoor ice rink located at 76 Maple Avenue.
Have a mover and a seconder? Carm? Tammy? Okay, thank you.
When we're chatting about Parks and Rec, I want to talk to, I know they're not here, but we put up the snow fence at both ends of the walking path there, and I've got a lot of calls on it and everything else. I just wanted to get the bottom of whether we can take that out or what the premise of it was, because we're really shutting down that area. If the lake's not frozen, then we get snow and the snowmobiles can't get out in the lake, and on and on. It's kind of sending a negative message on that note, but also they put like a 20-foot wide path between the lake and the gas station on that note. And I can see that becoming problematic. If we get a bunch of snowmobilers coming and going, it's going to be a problem. So I'd like to see it all taken down on that note. And when the lake becomes safe, then the Snowmobile Association marks the lake as they do every year. And when they do that, then they can put up signs saying, please proceed to the trail or whatever at the sign at the end of the by the airplane down there is my opinion. But again, this is something I want to talk with Andrea and Marie and whatever council on that, but I'd like to see that stuff taken down, maybe massaged a bit more on that note.
And I know they work with the Snowmobile Association every year to figure out the best way to keep that safe mixture of cars and people and skidoos. And I think that's a solution they had worked on with them. I know, hearing your concerns, I think they were gonna remove some of the yellow tape or something to make it less unsightly. But it's, at the end of the day, it's up to you guys. But they have been working with the Snowmobile Association on the fencing in the park and the other solutions to try and funnel the traffic. But I'm not an expert on it. I don't skidoo in town, so.
And if we're closing that off, then we're forcing people out on the lake, or if they're not allowed in town and that's the only avenue to get into town, then they turn around and go home. So to me, it just a bit more, again, a bit more massaging of that program, and I think you got it, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that we should communicate, like you're saying, with the Parks and Rec and make that work for sure, because snowmobiling is such a big part of our community, and when they get this close to town, why can't they come in and do some shopping or whatever? So it'd be a shame that they were turned away. Okay. We had a mover and seconder, didn't we? All right. Next, we have the Building and Bylaw Department. We have Carl coming on.
Good morning, Council. So we'll start with the building permit activity report. So you'll notice in October, the number of overall permits is up in October, but the types of permits, so minor residential and septics, it results in a lower construction value for that month. You'll notice that the permit revenue is on average from previous years. The number of inspections is starting to go down a little bit. Any questions on the activity report?
No questions from anybody? Okay. Could I have a resolution, please, Mallory?
Be it resolved that council receives the October 2024 building permit activity report as information.
Mover and seconder. Tammy and Pat. And now we have an update on the October 20th report. Maybe we just had that, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's Haley now.
Yeah,
Thanks,
sorry,
me.
sorry
Yeah,
about that.
go ahead,
Yeah,
Haley.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Haley.
Morning. Yeah, so we have the bylaw update report for mid-October to mid-November. We're seeing the seasonal drop, but not as much as we maybe would have liked, considering the other items we have going on. We have our first update for our short-term rental licenses. So at the time of this report, we had 44 applications, 33 had been approved, 11 were pending. We've received a few more since this report was written last week. Our planning requests have also increased. We're seeing that big increase due to the short-term rental license application. Many people are needing minor variances or wanting to purchase the shore road allowance for the short-term rental licenses. So that's why we're seeing that spike in the planning requests. For our general updates, last November, when the deer feeding bylaw was passed, it was discussed that it may be revisited in 1 year. I just wanted to check in to see if council wanted to revisit that bylaw or if they're happy the way it is. And our other bylaw enforcement issues, we're receiving a lot more referrals from roads for encroachments and damage to the roadway. We don't have a ton of wording in our bylaw to take enforcement action for these issues. We have an encroachment bylaw, but there's no set fines, no tickets or anything that we can really write. We can maybe do a reinspection fee for encroachment, but other than that, we don't have a lot of enforcement power for encroachments or damage to roads.
Some questions, Pat?
Yeah.
Or Barry, sorry.
Haley, just, I see there's been 33 approved short-term rental licenses, right?
Yeah, as of November 20th, I believe there's been a few more approved since then.
Okay, I just wondered are you getting any feedback or people saying to you like it's a really painful act to go through or they're not really, you know, it's okay, or just how is the feedback on that?
It's kind of a mixed bag. We're trying to make it as painless as possible, and we're being as available as we can to applicants to help them walk them through the process. There are some items where people get confused, mostly when it comes to the shoreline road allowance. That's where most people are running into confusion. But yeah, I would say about half we do need to kind of walk through a process, and we've had very few where it's been we've received the application and we can just approve it without contacting the applicant again for more information. I would say maybe 10% of them have been able to be just approved based on the application that was submitted and not require additional conversation.
Okay, I just wondered if there was something that we should maybe be changing to make it easier, or I don't, you know, if you guys got any recommendations, let us know, that's all.
Haley, I don't know if, I've had a couple phone calls regarding people that are off the lakes wanting to rent Airbnbs on backlots, let's say in especially in town here too, on that note. And I think when we wrote the bylaw, it was excluding that, and they're saying, they're being told they have to get minor variance or rezoning or something like that. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on massaging that bylaw to include those people too. And we were talking about it here earlier where, you know, if we're able to do that, you know, it's even better in a rental situation because we have the homeowners on site that are kind of monitoring the activity at their rental on that note. So you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure. They shouldn't have an issue for a backlot property or even in town. We've approved in town short-term rentals and backlots. So I mean there have been some issues with minor variances being needed for I guess structures that are in the water setback, and maybe some people have applied. I'm trying to remember what we all needed minor variances
Well,
for.
maybe it's a conversation we can talk about later on.
Yeah.
I know two people, and maybe this is just a technicality we got to iron out on that note. I don't want to
Yeah,
reinvent
I'm
the
not
wheel, but
sure.
if we got to massage it to make it easy for everybody, then we'll do that. But anyway.
Yeah,
So-
because
sorry,
they
Pat.
shouldn't.
Pat, are you talking about the accessory dwellings that people have on their properties?
Well, I don't know I don't know what classification it is. I do know one fellow who's got a house and he's got an Airbnb unit on his property that he wants to rent out. Okay, and he said he's having troubles with it. So
Right.
what I can do, if you don't mind, I'll connect everybody here and then, you know, after the meeting or later on, maybe tomorrow, and see if there's any common ground there. We can sort it out.
Okay, so it's more about the accessory structures that can't be rented out as an independent Airbnb.
Yeah,
as
that
opposed,
sounds like it. Yeah.
Right, so it would require a change of the zoning bylaw. Because private cabins cannot be used for monetary gain, so it's not about it.
And I think we worded that so
yeah.
that they couldn't rent private cabins on lakefront, if I remember right. Is that correct? I think.
I'm not sure. I wasn't part of that decision making.
It was any private cabin, and the purpose for that is so a private cabin's not allowed to have a kitchen. So like, are these people cooking for these people in the private cabin? And so the zoning bylaw specifically talks about that you cannot use a private cabin for gain. So it's something that we would have to look at our zoning bylaw as well, if that is the case, that it's a private cabin that we're talking about.
Okay, well, like I said, Carl, I'll come to you and we'll talk about it because again, it you know, if it's short-term rental, and that's exactly what it is, then if that's the case, so. Okay.
Okay, any more discussion? Have a resolution, please, Mallory?
Okay, be it resolved that council accepts the bylaw update report from October 15th to November 20th, 2024 as information.
Mover, seconder, Barry, and Carm. Haley, I believe you have the waste demolition buildings on Wigamog property.
Yes, so I wanted to provide an update on kind of what the status is with the Wigamog and just request for a direction. I know that there was some desire to have the debris from the already demolished buildings removed. There's a question as to whether or not we as a municipality could accomplish that. I have spoken with the MECP in terms of just getting the already demolished structures removed. We would just need to conduct a waste audit prior to that removal, and the municipality could step in and have that debris removed. The issue with the main building is that there was the species at risk study was deemed inconclusive by the MECP. So there are basically two options with that: either wait until next June to reconduct the study, or there is an exemption which can be applied for by the property owner. We're still waiting to hear back to see if the municipality stepping in could apply for that exemption to demolish the main building and remove that as well. But I don't have an answer on that yet.
There's an exemption that we were talking to the MOE yesterday, and there's an exemption that we can apply for health and safety reasons. And so the main building, the roof is collapsing. It likely falls under that, but they're checking with their legal team to see if the municipality can apply for that exemption, not being the property owner. So they said it's a very unique case that we have here, and they're looking into it and they're trying to get us an answer. But if we were able to get if we were to apply for the RFP for the main building, only possibly, that's the main issue. That's the one that people are trying to break into. That's the one that's falling down. If we're able to do that, it might speed the RFP along, that we're only looking at the one building to demolish under an RFP, and then the Wigamog could handle the rest of the demolition at their own pace.
What happened to the study? Why was it basically no good, I guess, is what.
So it was done by a reputable company, and but it didn't meet the requirements of their recommendations, and it took a while for me to wrap my head around this, because bats migrate, so completing the demolition during the winter would be a good thing. It's just they need that study done, even though the bats aren't there right now. So what they're saying is that, well, we can look at, rather than going through and completing that study when the temperatures are such that the bats are there, we can complete it under a health and safety requirements, assuming that the bats are there. It didn't make much sense to me, but Haley explained it to me a couple of times, and it was kind of started to kick in. We're dealing with just government regulations, in black and white, that aren't necessarily common sense, but we have to abide by them.
Well, I would say if we can get any RFPs ready to go, let's get them ready to go, so that the minute somebody says you're up, we get it done.
Yeah, we would actually have to complete the demolition by March, because that's when the bats are expected to come back. So
Carl, the current resolution as it's written does not account for the main building. Are you looking for council to approve a request for proposal for the removal of the main building?
So yeah, our discussion with the MOE kind of changed things a little bit yesterday, because they're talking about possibly a health and safety exemption that we might be able to fall under without having to do these additional studies. So the health and safety only applies to, well, what's a health and safety issue, right? So essentially the main building would likely fall under that because the roof is collapsing.
Okay.
The other buildings,
would you want to remove all of it? Sorry, Carl, would you want to remove all of it too? Like continue, like would you want to do the waste audit, the removal of the demolished buildings, and add the removal of the main building?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, so it's up to council what they'd want. I mean, the other buildings might not fall under that health and safety requirement. It might take longer. We might have to do that study. So we don't know the exact answer yet from the MOE. They're, again, exploring that option. But if it boils down to that health and safety issue, I think it's the main building. That's the one I think everybody is mostly complaining about. And the issues that we're having. So if we're able to focus on that one building, at least we've got something that we can accomplish this year, and it might bring that cost down, the overall cost down to complete that. If council has any feedback on this as I'm talking, definitely try to chirp in and
Carl, on my angle, do it all at once. Like you can easily segue the whatever's been done over there so far into being a health and safety issue between mold and fire and other animals getting into it and a safety hazard and on it goes. So to me, the whole thing's in one basket, and I don't want to tear down the main lodge and then still have that eyesore lurking behind it on the same note that drags out for another 5 years because of this type of nonsense in regards to dealing with bats that aren't even here on that note. So to me, my opinion is just to do it all at once. And that's the way we propose it to the MOE and everybody else in that regard.
So if the MOE comes back and declares that, yeah, you can demolish the whole thing because of health and safety things, okay, so we can do that. But what if they come back and say, well, you know, there's only one building here that really represents a health and safety to people because the other ones are boarded up. This one is actually falling down. So, you know, nobody is supposed to be getting into these buildings because they're boarded up. So it's again, it rests on what the MOE comes back with. So I'm wondering if we can have kind of two options here to play with depending on what the MOE comes back with.
Well, I agree with Pat in regard to, and I'm sure all council does, regard to the all the cottagers and all the residents along that road have been looking at this mess for a long, long time, and everybody's worrying about you know, somebody getting hurt in there. So I think that if we can get somebody's not happy. Yeah, maybe. They're all for it. No, but I really think that it's time for us to move, and whatever we can get going here, Pat and Haley, that'd be great as far as I'm concerned. Let's get tearing it down and addressing the issue, right? Clean the whole thing up. And when we start, let's finish it.
I have a question for Carl.
Nancy, go ahead.
So Carl, if we did the demolishment of the main building, which is the big health and safety issue, would that include the carting away all the refuse from the main building as well?
Yes. Yes.
So then there would just be what they've already done to be removed either at the same time or at a later time.
Well, can this include the carting away of the other buildings, Haley? I believe so.
The quote that I received for the demolition and removal is for the entirety of the property.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So we can
What
keep
we-
it as the entire property and see if that plays out with the MOE. If it doesn't, we might have to come back to council then and ask for
Yeah.
additional direction.
I think we also just have to be cautious that what we spend doesn't outvalue what the potential return is on that or getting that money back, because it will be a lot, just to make sure.
Does anybody else have any other comments?
I'm full agreement with doing the whole thing at once, just like Haley said there, if it's been applied for, like, or been quoted for it anyway, but.
I agree 100%.
So we can do a resolution and then basically put if permitted by the ministry. So we can just list everything that needs to be removed and then, but everything's going to depend on what the ministry says back to staff. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Mallory, do we need Carl to come back? Like, if they come back and just say the main building, do we need Carl to come back to us again? Or can we just right now tell them that if that's all they're gonna let us do, then do it? Take what we can get, yes. And we would like to get the whole thing, but if they're only gonna allow the main building, do we need Carl to come back, or can we?
I think the RFP will be written differently based on what is being done. But I don't know. I like, he might have to come back and say, this is the update. The RFP is just going to be, it just might just be letting you guys know that the RFP will, and actually letting the public know too, because this is something that everyone wants to know about, that the RFP is just for this section, for example, and then issuing it after that.
So we should have the RFP presented to council by next council meeting. And we should have heard back from MOE at that time, so we can be bring a more comprehensive report to council at that time, basically indicating this is this is the path that we need to take based on an MOE and get another resolution at that time.
So this resolution will just show that council's in support of everything,
Yeah.
if permitted by the ministry, and then we'll go from there. If that, I'll read it. How about that? And then you guys tell me if you want it worded differently. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay, so right now it says, be it resolved that council directs the bylaw department to proceed with issuing a request for proposal for a waste audit, the removal of the demolished buildings, and the demolition or removal of the main building at the Wigamog property, if permitted by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks.
A mover and a seconder. Pat and Carm. All in favor? Thank you, Mallory.
No problem.
So just a quick question for Carl. So you are going to apply for the health and safety aspect to have the main building demolished? That's just not mentioned in
Well,
this.
so we're gonna go for the whole kit and caboodle at this time.
Right.
So we're
Yeah.
getting the approval from council to go apply for the RFP for that. You know, we're expecting MOE to get back to us hopefully this week or early next week with regards to what exemptions we fall under, and then we might have to re-strategize and basically create the RFP for just the main building or whatever buildings they consider health and safety risks, and then bring that back to council in December.
Go ahead, Tammy.
When the MOE did the BAT study, was it not just for the main building or was it for all the buildings?
So that's what was part of their confusion, is they have no idea what building was included in this. Was it just for one building or was it for all the remaining buildings on the property? That was one of their concerns, that there was too many unanswered questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Carl and Haley. All right. Next, we have the application to the Digital Museums Canada's Community Stories Program with Kate. Kate,
Hello, how's everyone doing this morning?
good. Kate, how are you?
Fabulous. So, just here quickly, just to go over a report, just seeking council support for an application that we'd like to put in to Digital Museums Canada's Community Stories Program. So, as I outlined in the report, it's a granting program that enables museums and other cultural organizations to share some of their stories on an online platform. So the Community Stories Program, that platform website is through Digital Museums Canada, and they also provide some support through the expertise of their staff through the program. It's a chance to showcase one story from a community's history, and one that we often find ourselves talking to visitors about is the story of the Golden Slipper Dance Hall. And I'm sure there's a few of you around the table who have heard stories about the slipper, maybe have some family stories about the slipper. So yeah, that's going to be the focus of the proposal. So the program, the Community Stories Program, if the application is successful, the DMC provides $25,000, and then that community story is put together in digital form over the course of a couple of years. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, there's no matching funds or anything like that needed, but staff would provide in-kind support through their time and work on the project and whatnot. So that's the scoop.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yeah, all sounds good, Kate, but could you give council a little bit of an update? We had a meeting last week and there's some major roof issues over there with the old barn and the Reed House and stuff like that. And it's almost getting to the point where it's an emergency situation. Something's gonna have to be done or we're gonna lose it or lose what stuff's in there. So maybe just a quick update on that, just so council's aware.
Sure. Yep, that's no problem. So I'm just I suppose I'll say that coming forward in terms of budget for next year. So yeah, I'll definitely cover it in more detail when we get around to budget. But yeah, we will be looking at a couple of more major projects around the museum to help in terms of the structural integrity, shall we say, of some of our historic buildings on site. So yeah, I'll provide more details about that and details about what we're looking at in terms of an ask for budget and whatnot. I will provide that at our first budget meeting in December, and that'll be upon us before we know it.
Any other comments? Okay, resolution, please, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council supports the proposed application to Digital Museum Canada's Community Stories program.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Next, we have Public Works with Rob, Dave, and John. Hi, Rob.
Good morning.
Morning, Rob. Okay.
So first up, we have so Good Roads is looking for a endorsement of the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. So this is something Good Roads has pitched to the ministry. It's 5 years and $183 million program. Basically, it's to target what's considered dangerous intersections and roadways, including road safety audits and potential road safety barriers and traffic lights, that kind of thing. Generally, I think it's a program worth supporting. We're not really sure how it's going to be rolled out at this point. I'm not also convinced that we're going to see a lot of this money locally within Dysart. We typically have low volume, low speed roads, so we don't have a lot of MVCs on our roadways. But generally, I think it's something we should support and have rolled out through Good Roads.
Any comments?
Rob, is that something that we have to send a delegate to, or we have to pay for, or is it just support, or what's?
Yeah, just general support. It'll be funded through the Ministry of Transportation. So basically, by this resolution, we will send it on to the ministry, and that will show our support for it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Resolution, please, Mallory.
It's a bit of a long one, so buckle up. Whereas official statistics from the Government of Ontario confirm that rural roads are inherently more dangerous than other roads, and whereas despite only having 17% of the population, 55% of road fatalities occur on rural roads, and whereas rural, northern, and remote municipalities are fiscally strained by maintaining extensive road networks on a smaller tax base, and whereas preventing crashes reduces the burden on Ontario's already strained strained healthcare system, and whereas roadway collisions and associated lawsuits are significant factors in runaway municipal insurance premiums, preventing crashes can have a significant impact in improving municipal risk profiles. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Dysart et al. Requests that the Government of Ontario take action to implement the Rural Road Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead. It will allow Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the high number of people being killed and seriously injured on Ontario's rural roads. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier, the Ontario Minister of Transportation, the Ontario Minister of Infrastructure, the Ontario Minister of Agriculture, the Ontario Minister of Rural Affairs, the Ontario Associate Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Response, and the Ontario Minister of Health and Good Roads, and further that this resolution be circulated to all municipalities in Ontario requesting their support.
Have a mover and a seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. And next we have the roads report. Dave?
Yep, good morning, council. How are you?
Good morning.
I got the road maintenance status report for October 2024. So Miller Paving, cold placed asphalt was applied on Kinesis Lake Road and Bitter Lake Road. Culvert replacements, we did some culvert replacements on Mountain Street. Emergency washouts, repair as needed. And that's really what I got. We've been prepping our trucks and equipment for the winter operations, and that's everything.
All right, that's great. Any council have any questions? Carm?
Yeah, I just want to say that the surface you did up at Kenese and Bear Lake Road's tremendous. People are very excited. It looks great and hopefully it'll last.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's really good. Great. All right.
Dave, what's the cost difference between tar and chip and that new stuff they're putting down? Any idea at this stage? A little early.
I know my double surface treatment cost. You'd have to talk to Rob Canelon for the other cost.
Okay. Bob's right
Yeah.
there. You can tell us.
Yeah, I'd have to run some numbers. It is more expensive on a unit price. I want to say, I can say ballpark 35%. But I can tighten that number up for you.
Well, that'll be great. I think, once we see how it survives this winter and everything else, it might be our next go-to for, if it lasts 3 times as long as the other stuff, it might be the solution, hopefully.
Yeah. The goal is to bring down the life cycle costs, right? So hopefully this is the key.
You bet.
Any other questions? Okay, resolution, please.
Be it resolved that council receives this report outlining roads maintenance activities for October 2024 as information.
Mover? Barry and Tammy, second. And all in favor? Okay, passed. Next, we have the truck, the new cab. I guess it's a I have 1 class 3 cab, 3 chassis.
So
Yeah. So this is a returning report from last month. This was brought forward in October, but deferred. There was questions by council on the other makes and models that were submitted. So I did add that to the chart in this report. The recommendation remains the same to go with low bid with the Ford F-350.
So the reason we brought this back, as I brought it up, is as a fleet standpoint, it doesn't make sense to have one odd vehicle. Right now we have Fords and Dodges. So in my opinion, and I talked to the guys at the shop, we should stick with Ford and Dodges because that's what we have. Chev and Dodges, I mean. And if he's want to go with a Ford, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the truck. It's just as a maintenance standpoint, we already have GMs. This next bid's a GM. So we wouldn't have to get different tooling, we wouldn't have to get different maintenance equipment. Everything we have, we just carry on. Yeah. So that's up to you guys. That's just my opinion.
Anybody? Go ahead.
And I
Rob.
just, yes, I would caution council on excluding the low bid just because of the make of the vehicle. I mean, that could open us up to some sort of exposure legally.
I don't know if it would, if it's gonna cost, whatever, it's only a bit different at $1,200. So if we pick up a different model, Rob, and we're having to pick up $3,000 in different tooling to maintain it, I think that the argument's there for that. The other angle I've got too is that was this distributed to local dealerships as well, or is it? I don't see anybody local in this bid format.
We don't distribute to local dealerships. It was in the paper and it's on bids and tenders, which we have an owner pay model. So people don't need to pay to sign up for bids and tenders to bid on our work. So they just need to register.
Yeah, I'd like to see it paper more often if that's the case, because again, people look at, I've got bids and tenders too, but that's bids and tenders from coast to coast on that note. Even if you pare it down, it's really a pain, for somebody looking for this type of stuff. But anyway, those are my comments on that.
Well, and just for council's information too, it wasn't that many years ago, we didn't have any Dodges in the fleet too. So, I mean, it's the way the market's going. The low bids are starting to come in.
So I know Carm's made a comment in regard to having to buy more new up-to-date wrenches and things like that. The mechanics, what's their opinion there? I know you said something about it. What have you heard, Rob and Dave?
They have not spoken to me about this tender.
Dave?
Yeah, for our shop, I did talk to the mechanics briefly on this. They would like to see the same truck come in, so either a Dodge or a Chev. That's what I've heard from the background from them.
I recommend we take the Chev and make that part of our, maybe our next bid profile, if that's all we're looking for. If that's the case. My own opinion.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Resolution, please.
Okay, so we're gonna go with the second bid. So, be it resolved that council award RFP 2024-PW-18, being a proposal to supply one Class 3 cabin chassis to Forward Motors Incorporated for one new Chev 3500 HD for a cost of $68,863, including HST, and that the truck be funded by the General Vehicle and Equipment Reserve.
Can I have a mover and a seconder? Pat and Carm. All in favor? Thank you. Pass. Thank you, Rob. All right. Next, we have John with the waste management summary.
Good morning, Council. This report is a summary of the third quarter activities for waste management. In the first 3 quarters of this year, we had a 3% increase in our vehicle traffic compared to the first 3 quarters in the previous year. In terms of our tonnage, the first 3 quarters of this year, we had a 1% increase in garbage tonnage and a 13% decrease in construction and demolition waste tonnage. For revenue, in the first 3 quarters of this year, we had a 5% decrease compared to the previous 3 quarters in the previous year. And in terms of expenses for hauling and processing, we had a 23% increase in garbage hauling and processing expenses, but a 61% decrease in construction and demolition waste hauling and processing expenses compared to the previous year, first 3 quarters. Any questions on this report?
Any questions, Council? Okay. Resolution, please, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council received the third quarter 2024 waste management summary for information.
Mover and seconder. Carm, Tammy. All in favor? Pass. Thank you.
Question for Rob there. Rob, where are we at with reconfiguring both the Halliburton and Guilford dumps? I think we had our consultants taking a look at all that.
Yeah, so in regards to the Halliburton and West Guilford landfills, we've been looking at both sites in terms of the potential redevelopment. Staff's perspective is that the Halliburton landfill is probably the most appropriate site for the full redevelopment for the full transfer station and being the sole source for construction demolition waste, partially due to some limitations of West Guilford's site, including the access road onto Highway 118 would be potentially problematic. And the Ministry of Transportation would need to weigh in on that, using West Guilford as exclusively for C&D.
Okay, are you bringing a proposal back to us then, coming up with that, or other than?
Yeah, so I'd anticipate at the December council meeting, we can bring back our proposal for the site redesign of Halliburton landfill. There will be some projects in our 2025 budget for some other sites as well that council will need to consider as well.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Next, John, you have a report on the empty beer, wine, and spirit containers results, nonprofit.
Correct. So based on council's approval of the draft overview agreement and application form, on September 3rd, the application process for local nonprofits and charities was issued to the public. That application process was announced on our website through social media and print advertising. As well, Dysart staff emailed 46 local nonprofits and charitable organizations outlining the application process and the different steps within that. There were 2 informal inquiries from local nonprofit groups about the application process. The application process closed on September 30th of this year, and no one actually ended up bidding on any of the work.
Okay. Any comments from council? Resolution, please, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council receive for information the results of the nonprofit application for empty beer, wine, and spirits containers recycling take back.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Thank you.
Well, can we take a break?
We sure,
Thank
not a
you.
problem, not a problem. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Before we resume our agenda, I'd like to acknowledge, I should have said it at the beginning and I totally forgot. Murray's just away today. He's got a bit of a cold, so he's fine for everybody out there. He's doing great, but that'd be best just stay away for today. So thank you. Now, next on the agenda is the finance report. Barbara.
Yes, good morning, Council. So our first report here is the October 24 check summary report. Total vendor payments were $2,450,000, $406.34 actually. You'll notice that EFTs are up this month, and that represents $950,000 for the Roads Capital Works program. The balance of disbursements of $299,106 is for our regular payroll.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Resolution, Mallory, please.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the October 2024 check summary.
Mover and seconder, Tam and Carm, all in favor? Pass. Thank you.
So our next report is the revenue and expenditure report at the end of the third quarter, being September 30th. Just a few items to note. Good news story for our municipal taxation. Throughout the year, MPACT has assessed an additional $68 million, which has translated into just over $200,000 in additional municipal tax revenue through supplemental billing. Under the building department, we're closely watching revenues. Year to date, we saw earlier that we're trending at 57% of our permit value compared to 2023. Do anticipate some shortfall on the building permit revenue for 2024. And any shortfall to that budget can be mitigated through drawing from the deferred building revenue fund. Under transportation, we have our capital works projects, namely our roads construction is well underway. And it's anticipated those costs will be finalized in November. Just one project to note, actually, our bridge rehabilitation projects that we had budgeted for in 2024, being the Coshlong Bridge and the Redstone Brook Bridge rehabilitations, roughly about $2.5 million. We will not be going ahead with those projects. So that will have a direct impact on both our revenue stream, being the debt, and the capital expense amounts will not be achieved in 2024. Under the environment, closely watching tipping fees, anticipate revenue shortfall. Looking at trends from previous years for the balance of this year, perhaps we're looking at about $50,000 shortfall in revenue there. And then finally in planning, closely watching those revenue streams, potential shortfall of revenue there. Particularly with compliance letters, official plan amendment, and severance proposals. So again, closely watching those for the balance of the year. Hopefully we'll get some action there. And that concludes the report, and happy to take any questions.
I have a question for Barbara. Do you have any sort of guess on what our change in revenue has been since we got rid of all the paid parking at the medical center in downtown? Is it a significant amount?
Referring to the paid parking at the medical center, a normalized year of annual revenues ran about $55,000. The downtown paid parking, that there normalized again, the revenues would run about $25,000 a year.
Barb, was there any costs associated with that, like repairs and staff to go and collect everything and everything else? That should be maybe a 50% split?
So if you're looking at collection of revenues at the medical center, that was an online payment system. So we got rid of the actual collection of money. There was some collection for the meters on in the downtown village here. And that staff time would have been allocated to our bylaw budget. It was our municipal law enforcement team that had administrated that. As far as repairs and supplies, it was very, very nominal. There was not a huge cost for that.
Yeah, I thought it was 50% or something. But anyway, on my own account, being this is my ward, I get nothing but positive feedback that both of those things are not in play anymore. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much then, Barb. Anybody else have any other questions on that? Okay, resolution, please, Mallory.
Yep. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at September 30th, 2024.
Have a mover and seconder, Barry and Carm. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, so the next report is our 2025 benefit renewal. So staff did meet with K Brewer Insurance Services, and the renewal for 2025, considering the short-term, long-term, and the AD&D benefits, there is actually a decrease of 3.37%. However, looking at the health and dental benefits, there's an increase of 5.11%. The combined premium increase for 2025 is 1.57%, or $6,854.
Any comments? Any questions? Go ahead, Tammy.
How many staff are on this program?
60.
So,
Sorry, Barbara, I was taking that off your report. 62 people on the plan.
thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, mover and seconder, please.
I'll read the resolution. Be it
Sorry.
resolved that council approve the employee benefit coverage proposal from Desjardins and Green Shield for renewal effective January 1st, 2025.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Tammy, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have administration. Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus response from the Minister.
So this was just the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus just asked us to share this response on the council agenda. Basically, it's just a response to the Minister of Finance 2024 Fall Economic Statement. Particularly, they're highlighting the increase of 100 million over the next 2 years to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. And just expressing that that's a good thing, because that's the main general grant to municipalities. So I just have a resolution here to basically accept their response. Do you want me to read that, Walt?
Yes, please.
Okay, be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the news release from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus detailing their response to the Ontario Minister of Finance's 2024 Fall Economic Statement.
Yeah, mover and a seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Thank you.
Next item here is bylaw to authorize the execution of a land donation agreement with the Haliburton Highlands Art Center Foundation and ourselves. So this is for the Wonderland Road property. This land donation agreement has been reviewed by council previously enclosed, and then also by the board for the Art Center Foundation as well, and it's ready to be adopted. Basically, it stipulates that if construction isn't beginning within 5 years, that the property goes back to the municipality. So it has the details within the agreement. If council has any questions, let me know.
Any questions? Yeah. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
So
Yeah.
I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-101, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a land donation agreement between the Haliburton Highlands Arts Center Foundation and the Corporation of the Municipality of Dysart et al., which is for the Wonderland Road property, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Yeah. We have a mover and seconder. Pat and Tammy. All in favor? Thank you.
Next report here is for we do our annual appointment to the County Land Division Committee, and Pat Kennedy is serving as our member, and so we've got a recommendation to appoint him as well again, and with Murray being the alternate.
Everybody okay with that? Great. Okay.
Okay. Be it resolved that council recommends the appointment of Patrick Kennedy to the County of Haliburton Land Division Committee for 2025, with Mayor Murray Ferry appointed as the alternate.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Pat. All in favor? Thank you.
And then next reports, again, just for information, council already knows about this, and hopefully the public does as well. There's the mobile service center for Service Ontario, and it will be visiting Haliburton in our parking lot here, so twice a month. It's on Wednesdays. Let me just look up. So they visit Haliburton bi-weekly on Wednesdays, with the next visit scheduled for December 4th. Operating hours are 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they encourage online or phone bookings if you're going to use the service, but you can also walk in. So it's a trailer that pulls up into the parking lot here to serve the community. So I just wanted to make sure it was on a public agenda, just to get the word out about the service.
I don't know if I make a motion at the end, but I'm not in favor of this whatsoever in that regard. Like, we got elderly people trying to abide by the law, getting stuff licensed in that type of a manner. And I heard this trailer is like 55 feet long, so it'll be interesting to see how that works in the town parking lot in the middle of winter, when there's snowmobile trailers and cars all over the place, and trying to get our elderly into this van that comes twice a month that they have to get online to get into to do it. I guess the alternative is to drive to Minden, but on the same note, I don't know if there's something we could put forward to the MTO to, I don't know, rekindle that or what have you, or the maybe the horses left the barn already. But anyway, I think it's a miscalculation on the ministry's part to even think about that. But anyway.
I know they haven't had a lot of uptake. They've only been here twice so far, and they haven't had a lot of uptake yet. So we did put out more social media posts and a sign up there to let people know it is here, so that those who can. I did follow up and ask them if there's anything we could do as well. Unfortunately, from a staff perspective, they're not going to change their decision right now because they deem that Minden is close enough to be a full service center for everybody. But you still have the option to speak to powers that be to see if there's any change you can make, I'm sure.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Mallory?
Yeah, so be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the report about the Haliburton operation schedule for the Service Ontario Mobile Center.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm. All in favor? Thank you. Next on the agenda, the flag protocol for policy.
Okay, I can speak to that. At the July meeting, council asked us to look into putting a flag policy together. We've never had one here. It's just been based on people coming and making requests directly to council. At that point, it was talked about having a single day for particular flags, and then at the October meeting with the flying of the women or the Days Against Violence flag, it was decided that community flags could be flown for a maximum of 1 week. So we went back to the policy and updated based on that direction. to develop this draft policy, which you can all comment what you like and don't like about it. 74 municipalities were polled and we got 74 responses, of which 57 were actual policies. All the answers to all the questions are in the report. I'm sure you don't want me to go through them all. But at the end of the day, what's been recommended here in terms of the flags, we have one community flagpole and it's at the arena. Everywhere else, we only have a single flagpole. So there's not really the opportunity to do this third one. So we'd like to designate this as the community flagpole. So this policy talks to half masting as well as flying of community flags. So there's certain dates that are written in here that would be automatic for flying half mast, which would be like sovereign or spouse, current Governor General, Prime Minister, Lieutenant Governor, Premier of Ontario, Member of Parliament, current Member of Council, former Mayor, or a special honor for someone the municipality wishes to respect at the discretion of the Mayor or their designate. In terms of annual days of significance that are like noted, recognized by the federal government, that we would fly those half-mast flags if we would lower the flag, sorry. If it was the desire of council, would be April 28th, which is the National Day of Mourning for persons killed or injured in the workplace. June 23rd, the National Day of Remembrance for victims of terrorism. The second Sunday in September, which is Firefighters National Memorial Day. The last Sunday in September, National Peace and Police Officers Memorial Day. September 30th, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. November 11th, Remembrance Day, and December 6th, National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. So that's just the half-masting piece of it. In terms of rising community flags, we've recommended a protocol for new requests to come through council. People would supply their own flags at designated sizes to match our pole if council agreed. Basically, once council agrees to it, then we would work it into the policy going forward so they wouldn't have to come back every year. But the ones we've identified so far in here, which council has approved in the past by separate resolutions, are the Pride flag to be raised during the Minden Pride Week. Every Child's Matter flag to be raised for a week leading up to and including the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The Poppy Lest We Forget flag will be raised for a week leading up to and including Remembrance Day. And the Elimination of Violence Against Women for 16 Days of Activism Against Gender Violence flag will be raised for the first week of the campaign. That's the one you recently approved for 1 week of the 16 days. So other than going through the rest of it line by line, if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. If there's anything you want us to look at outside of that.
Go ahead, Pat.
Just going through the list here, I would propose that we fly the Poppy or Lest We Forget for a month in November is the only thing I would add to that. I think we talked in the past about flying individual flags for only about a day. I don't know, rethinking that, whether that's worth it or not. People might not even notice them, but
That's why from your last discussion, that's why we changed it to a week from your last council.
Council will have to decide whether that's appropriate or not. But again, the only adjustment I make is a full month for our veterans.
Okay.
Pat, what do you think of, and council, what do you think of flying it for the month leading up to, because that's close, like it's not exactly what the Poppy campaign, but if you fly, because it's a Poppy flag, so if you fly it for a month leading up to and including Remembrance Day, does that make sense to people, just to kind of get people into the Poppy mindset of that campaign's coming up?
I like that. Or centered a bit more towards Remembrance Day too, maybe 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, maybe. I do like that idea though, Mallory. Nancy, do you want to say?
I just really appreciate the amount of work that staff has done on this. I think they did a lot of homework and I think it's a very complete and I think it's a really good policy and I just want to thank them for all their work on this. I think they did a really good job and I'm totally fine with the policy as written. I think you can play a little bit with the Remembrance Day event, but I totally in agreement with the rest of the policy. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm also I'll echo what Nancy said there and basically what Pat said also. I definitely want our the Veterans Day flag either up 2 weeks before and maybe the whole month of November, or 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. But I definitely want us to spend some more time thinking about that and just remembering what was sacrificed. Thank you.
So the only caution I would give council about doing the whole month of November is that it gets into that campaign for violence against women. So that starts at the end of November. So I can't remember when the Poppy campaign starts. It starts in late October. But if you did it, if you centered it, you might not overlap. If I'm thinking, I'm just looking up Poppy campaign to remind myself.
As long as we can support them both, Mallory, I think you guys can massage that.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Yeah, so yeah, we can yeah, Poppy campaign ends obviously November 11th with Remembrance Day. So do you guys like the idea of the month leading up to, or would you rather it not be the month leading up to?
I think it's fine to stagger it around the date, like, you know, when they start their campaign to maybe a few days after Remembrance Day, and then that isn't going to cause an overlap.
Carm suggested 3 and 1, Mallory, 3 weeks before, 1 week after, and that doesn't intervene with the women's violence.
Sure.
Anybody else have any other comments? We're all agreeable to that, I guess. Yeah.
I'm just writing the resolution so that it gives us direction so that we can pass the policy, but we say as amended.
To reflect a month for the veterans flag.
So I've written and make sure I'm going to read it and make sure it makes sense. Be it resolved that council adopts policy 74 flag protocol policy as amended to direct that the Poppy / Lest We Forget flag be raised 3 weeks before Remembrance Day and lowered 1 week following Remembrance Day. Does that sound good to everyone?
Sure. Okay, mover and seconder. Carm. Tammy. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. We have Danielle coming in, I believe, next, right? The maintenance management software. There she is, Danielle. How you doing?
Morning.
All
Good,
right.
how are you?
You're ready to go?
So I'm here today to talk about the pre-approval to purchase and implement the PSD Maintenance Manager in Citizen Portal. This module complements the Asset Manager purchased by Finance back in August. Maintenance Manager is a single database for managing and maintaining our assets, work orders, bylaws orders, and general operations, as well as vehicle inspections, so that would be pertain to fire and public works, and various parks and recreation tasks. The project includes the customer-facing portal, which allows the public to submit a complaint or concern, which then they can opt in to have automatic responses. These automatic responses are when staff members take it from like a service request and push it into a work order. So they would receive something saying like they were complaining about a tree, and they can say your tree is being pushed to be removed. That then automatically pushes out to our staff members' cell phones through the app, which then allows them to complete the work order on site, submit it that they've completed it, and it goes back to a dashboard and automatically notifies the complainant that the work order has been complete. So it takes out some of that back and forward, goes from a call to an email, back to a call. They get some automation there. There are many benefits of this software, including from like a limited user, because currently majority of our platforms are paid by user. Therefore, we would be able to have all staff on this platform without having to pay additional. As well as the mobile app works offline. So a large problem right now we're facing obviously in our municipality is that we don't have great self-service. So that prevents a lot of softwares from working the way we'd like. This one allows for staff to be able to load their day at the beginning and then be able to complete all the work, have attachments and photos of complaints and or work that they need to do. And then at the end of the day, they're able to come back into service and just load everything that they've done for the day, and it's pushed back to the main database. So for example, if Rob Camlon wanted to track any of the work orders for the day, he can just sign into the dashboard and it'll show which work was complete, who was it completed by, and what did they do. The software also includes metrics as can add metrics of like like materials did they use versus the price of it. And there's also then some capital budgeting that Barbara has access to based right out of this manager. So implementing PSD has a large return on efficiencies with a positive return on investment of about 34% in the first year. The project has no impact on the levy as it will be funded from the Safe Restart Fund. Anyone have questions?
I read your whole report and I think it's very thorough and I like all the numbers in there. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Tammy?
Yeah, if we go with this, how it says that it would take up to 6 months to come into effect. If we gave the okay, when does that start? Like when?
So if you give the okay, I believe I can get the agreement signed either next month or the beginning of January, just as we are implementing the asset manager right now. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and get pre-approval so then we can start Jan 1. Is my hope, as we'll be further into the asset management implementation, and then we can just start doing maintenance manager.
So then it would be on our website and citizens can go there to.
Yes, so it would replace the current function of like report a concern, which is currently on our website. So instead they would have one portal login where they can see all the complaints and or just general comments that they've entered in. And then once they go from there, all staff has it on a dashboard. So every single complaint, every single work order, any inspection can be viewed by all staff here.
Thanks.
Does that include us too, as a council? We can review any of that when we want?
I'm not sure about council access, but council does have the ability now to sign up for a portal account as well. So if you're out driving around and you notice that there's a tree down or there's hazardous trees, you can submit a service request and then you'll get an automated response when staff have touched it. So let's say it gets pushed out the next day to a work order. Once that work order has been complete of that hazardous tree's been taken down, you would get that automated response saying staff have cleared the hazardous tree. Please let us know if there's any further concerns. But I will check into getting council access.
Danielle, couple of questions. So the actual cost of the software program is 125, is that right? 124?
$123,983, including tax.
Okay, is there a yearly user fee?
The yearly user fee is $21,950, which I'll say is it actually is going to be cheaper than our current annual user fees for our program we're using existingly.
So the program we use existently, does it do all this stuff now or no?
No, so it does allow us to do like patrol routing and it does deficiencies. I have built a couple applications in it that allows us to do some of our tasks, but it doesn't integrate with any other database. So we can pull things out in Excel and push them into others. But this one's a direct one-for-one. So this will actually help the asset management side of it for finance because it'll give all those metrics. So if we replaced a bench, that bench can be cost out as this is the price of the bench and it gets pushed through. Yes, ma'am.
Does it require full-time management? Were we going to have to hire somebody to run this program or is it going to be just segued into what we have now?
It's going to be segued into what we have now. So I will take on the task of starting the implementation and finishing the implementation, but generally we already have staff that use the applications that we currently do, so it won't take any more time.
Okay. And it meshed right in with with the system we just bought. Is that correct?
Yes, so it's an additional module. So it's PSD Citywide is broad company of the platform for the software, and this is an additional module.
Okay, how's it handle real-time conversations is my question, I guess, too. It like tree falls down, you just said that they get their work orders in the morning. So is it real time? So you get a complaint call or a citizen calls in, says there's a tree down. They don't have to wait till the next day in order to get their orders to go and do that, or you punch it?
No. So I use that example as more if they're offline and there's no cell service. The moment they get into cell service, they'll get that notification as, hey, there's a tree down and the work order's been assigned to you. So for example, if Dave is in the office and he receives that service request come in saying, hey, there's a tree down, he can push it out to whatever crew is closest to that location. And as long as they have service, they get it immediately. If not, they will get it the moment they turn back into service.
Okay, and even Rob, they're well aware of this whole program. They're pretty comfortable with it then?
Yes, I've been working with all of the departments listed.
Very good. Thanks.
Yeah, Danielle, so the fee, would you say it was 21,000?
123 or yearly, you mean?
Yes, yearly.
Yeah, 21,950, and that includes any maintenance on the actual software as well as the citizen portal.
And that's replacing other fees that were, and what would the difference be roughly?
Get that number for you. So we currently will be like, if we had the users that we needed for our current system, we'd be spending 21,650. So it looks like we're just at the numbers, it's about $300 more a year right now in just maintenance, but that doesn't include any of the efficiencies that the system brings.
So to me, it sounds like a no-brainer for you and all the staff here and making things more efficient.
My goal is to bring increased customer service as well as increased efficiencies and functionality to the municipality, so I would say so.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else have any other comments? Can we have a resolution, please, Mallory?
Yeah. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the asset management software review report and that council directs staff to purchase the PSD Citywide Maintenance Manager and Citizen Portal software, and that the maintenance manager software be funded from the Safe Restart funds.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danielle. All right, we're going to be going into planning right now, but we're going to jump ahead. We have somebody in the audience and meet Jeff, and I guess Jeff's on there right now. We're going to go right to the Dalkey file, please, Jeff.
Well, this is the one that I got.
Okay, and Barry's heading out. Thank you.
Don't forget about it.
Oh. Okay. This is file number. Okay. Okay. Jeff, would you like to start us off on this, please?
Sure, thank you. So as per the report, this request has many moving parts. I know it's a long report, but I will try and go through it as quick as I can. So in essence, Ms. Dalkey and Mr. Lawrence have submitted an application to purchase the shore road allowance in front of their property on Cardiff Lake. They are also requesting to purchase a portion of the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road, which is a municipally maintained road, on both the north and south side of that road. The intent of the road closing applications is to legalize the location of the existing buildings and permit the construction of a septic system on the subject lands, which also includes an additional septic system on the property located on the north side of Cardiff Lake Road, which is also owned by the applicants. It should be noted that the existing septic system is currently located on the neighbor's property. The applicants have also submitted a license of occupation application to recognize the location of the development on the shore road allowance. The intent of this license of occupation is to to recognize the location of these dwellings in the short term while this process goes through to enable the applicant to obtain a short-term rental license. As mentioned, this is a complex request where the existing lands are very undersized. The owner's lands on the south side of the road are only 0.05 acres or just over 2,200 square feet. But as mentioned, the applicants do own a 1.5 acre parcel on the backside of Cardiff Lake Road. In addition, development has occurred over the years on municipal property without proper approval. So there are some compliance issues to discuss that need to be addressed. The report, again, I mentioned it was a really long report. So I divided into multiple sections to help organize the information for council. We reviewed the history of the property, including prior approvals. We did a property review, a zoning review. We obtained comments from other internal departments. We reviewed the license of occupation request and provided 2 options for council's consideration. At the end of the report, we do provide recommendations based on policy and the comments received from the internal departments. So as I said, I'll try and go through this quickly. I'll first touch on some of the history of this property, including the historic decisions of council. Council previously reviewed a request to purchase the Shore Road allowance and also reviewed a severance proposal for these lands. In the most recent decision, council outlined concerns related to water setbacks, servicing, again, the undersized lots. They noted at the time that all cottages should be removed from the municipal Shore Road allowance on the south side of Cardiff Lake Road and that they be relocated to the property to the north side of Cardiff Lake Road. Most recently, council received a delegation last month. The applicants were requesting to purchase the Shore Road allowance as well as the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road with the intent of recognizing the dwellings, obtaining a short-term rental license, constructing new septic systems, and potentially severing the lands into separately conveyable parcels. As per council's or the minutes in the report, council endorsed that proposal and directed the applicant to submit applications. The applicants have now submitted a road closing application and a license of occupation application, as well as obtained a survey to determine the location of the infrastructure. As mentioned, staff did a property review, including a zoning compliance review. The subject lands are zoned rural type 1 at the moment. There are 2 dwellings located on the property which do not comply with the permitted maximum of 1. It should be noted that these structures do not have legal non-complying status. However, given that the dwellings were first assessed in 1966, so they have been there a long, long time, council could recognize their locations pursuant to the official plan, but to achieve this, council would need to convey the Shore Road allowance. Both dwellings presently are sharing the same septic system, which is located on the neighbor's property, which should be rectified. The report details several issues for the property as a whole, as well as for each civic address, including encroachments on municipal land, zoning compliance issues, as well as outstanding building permits and entrance permits. To clarify, just for council's information, even though the dwellings have separate 911 addresses, all development is located on one lot on the south side of the road. In terms of comments, staff circulated internal departments for comments on the proposal. Of interest was comments for the proposed purchase of the road allowance up to the edge of the traveled portion of Cardiff Lake Road. We sought comments from the Public Works Department for that. The Building Department was also circulated for comments related to the proposed and existing septic systems. The chief building official was able to provide comments related to the setback requirements for septic systems, including the setbacks from water, lot lines, and hydro lines. He provided building code requirements and solutions to proceed. He did note for council's consideration that a septic system shall be located on the same property as the dwelling. Otherwise, it may be under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Environment. He noted that the septic system is able to be located on the back lot as long as the properties are conveyed in a way that they cannot be sold separately from each other. Alternative solutions may be applied for under the building code to the chief building official for setbacks that do not comply with the prescriptive setbacks, as long as it obtains the same level of performance. The chief building continues that for a septic permit to be issued, the septic system would need to be installed on the property owned by the applicants and not on the shore road allowance or road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road. He did mention a solution, which was holding tanks, and mentioned that they would be an option permitted under the building code to upgrade a septic system serving an existing building where upgrading with a typical system is not possible to the lot size, slope, or clearance limitations. We did get comments from the Public Works Department. They were circulated regarding the conveyance of the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road, where the applicant again is requesting to purchase to the edge of the traveled portion of the municipal road. The Public Works, or the Director of Public Works, recommends against disposing of the road allowance for along Cardiff Lake Road adjacent to the subject lands. He notes that the road does not meet current standards in width and that any upgrades to the road will require the existing road allowance to accommodate widening and drainage ditches. The Director of Public Works also notes that entrance permits for the existing and proposed driveways are required. And one thing staff wanted to note, it should be noted that the portion of the road allowance on the north side of Cardiff Lake Road cannot be added to the property on the south. So if council does consider closing these, which has been recommended against, that both lots should be used as one for development purposes. In terms of the license of occupation, which is a separate application, but we wanted to bring that to council for some direction. They have submitted an application for the 2 seasonal dwellings for the purpose of obtaining a short-term rental license. Staff have outlined concerns in the report regarding the existing compliance issues and the development are concerns regarding the development capabilities of the lots on the south side of the road. In the submission, the applicants have shown that they plan to put their one of the septic systems across the road, which will require a pipe under Cardiff Lake Road. And if that does occur, this will require a license of occupation for the underground portion of that septic system, which is located on municipal property. So we do seek direction with regards to whether council would entertain that license of occupation for those structures and the portion of the septic system that will be going under the road. So all in all, we have provided 2 options today for council's consideration. That the 2 options which directly relate to the resolutions provided for you today include various approvals and conditions. The first option is for council to recognize the location of the existing development. It would be to deny the request to purchase the shore road allowance and to deny the request to purchase the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road. It would indicate that no new development would be permitted on the south side of the road. But it would recommend that a license of occupation be granted to recognize the temporary location of that development to enable the applicants to get their short-term rental license. The applicants would be required to obtain the necessary septic permits, building permits, and entrance permits, and the removal of any structures that do not comply with the zoning bylaw or encroach on municipal property. So the first option, just to summarize, was just to recognize the existing development and not permit any new development. The second option provided for council is to recognize the long-term development of both these properties, the one on the north side of the road and the south side of the road, as one lot for development purposes. This would enable the applicant to have a little bit more flexibility with their development. It still would indicate, our recommendation is still to recommend no new development to be permitted on the south side of the road. The shore road allowance could be conveyed subject to the eventual removal of all structures to the north side of the road. The request to purchase the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road is still recommended to be denied under this instance. It is recommended that both septic systems be located on the north side of Cardiff Lake Road, and that the existing septic system be decommissioned. As mentioned, a license of occupation would need to be granted to recognize the existing legal development, but also to permit that pipe to go under Cardiff Lake Road. This again would permit the applicants to get their short-term rental license. If this were the instance, I mean, the way this proceeds, a mechanism would need to be included on title, so on the applicant's deeds, ensuring that the north lot and south lot could not be conveyed separately. A zoning bylaw amendment would be necessary to develop the lands on the north side of the road to permit a septic system as the primary use. Again, pursuant to the official plan, the removal of any structures that do not comply with the zoning bylaw or encroach on municipal property. So just moving on to the recommendations, and I know I outlined two scenarios there. There are likely many other scenarios that the applicant could consider. Due to the history of development and the complexities of this undersized lot, each scenario will likely require various approvals and conditions. Staff recommend opinion 1, which is to recognize the existing development while restricting future development on the south side of Cardiff Lake Road. This recommendation is based on the following reasons. It is based on the comments provided by the Director of Public Works, that he denied the request to close and convey the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road. Staff have outlined their concerns that the lots are not sufficient size to be properly developed without impacts on adjacent land uses, including the lake, the road, and neighboring properties. As mentioned, the property is only approximately 2,200 square feet in area, what makes it very difficult for structures to meet any of the required setbacks. The concerns relate to servicing, both parking, water, septic, zoning concerns as outlined in the report, and encroachment concerns. Based on the history of decisions, for this property and reasons stated, staff recommend that council deny that request and go with option 1. Again, I thank you. That's the end of this report. There is a lot of moving parts, and I assume you have lots of questions, and I will do my best to answer them.
Tammy, go ahead.
Jeff, is it possible, I know that the roads department has had a look at this, but and we can sell the shore road allowance, and the road allowance, can it be traded so that they can get the 3 meters on the south side, and they give 3 meters on the other side? Then that way she would be allowed to come into compliance if we can give up the south side for the north side. Is that a possibility?
So are you suggesting, so we sell the shore road allowance and we give up the portions of Cardiff Lake Road on the south side of the road in exchange for the same amount of land from the applicant's property on the north side of the road?
Yes.
I suppose it's an option. I would definitely want to seek comments from the Director of Public Works regarding that request, because it might require some road relocation. But hypothetically, it is possible, but I would recommend we get those comments.
I think that the only road relocation would be is if the Public Works wanted to expand that road. So it might never happen.
Correct. And as per their comments, or do any ditching or clearing or anything like that, they're actually requesting to purchase right up to the edge of the traveled portion of the road.
Which I think is the up to the 3 meters there. So they could easily trade 3 meters on the other side.
I wouldn't say easily, but it is possible.
Right, okay.
It would be quite expensive. There'd be lots of legal fees. Again, it's similar to, we've done this in the past for road closing applications, where we do take land in exchange for other land.
Okay, so that's one. The other one is the septic was approved in the current septic was approved in 1993 for 10 people, which is enough for the 2 cottages. and the other cottage, the first cottage, is not on that septic anymore. So, does it actually have to be moved?
So there were at one point 3 cottages. The applicants recently sold one of the cottages. So now they have 2 cottages that are using the same septic system. But that septic system is on the property that they sold, which is the issue. Your septic system needs to be on your own property. So I think that's why this needs to be resolved, is we need to get their septic system onto their own property.
Eventually, it does need to be resolved, but it's into the deed of the parcel of land that they just sold to the new owners, and they understand and are okay with the septic there, and it is in the deed as well. So
They have it, they're allowed to have the septic on the neighboring property? Is that in their deed? Is that what you said?
yes, yes.
Okay. And again, this is an area that's outside of my expertise, and I would seek comments from the chief building official on that. He has noted in his comments to the planning department that the septic system needs to be located on their property. If not, it becomes approval under the Ministry of Environment, and that they would not be able to get septic permits. So I would defer comments to him, but that's what was provided to us.
Okay, so that is a possibility that we can look at too as well then, as that it has been approved in 93, and that eventually it will need to be changed, but there's also new technology for septics, which could be smaller, and there are a few options there. So when it does get to be replaced, it does not have to follow the rules and regulations from 93, and it might be more efficient. And what was the other? So do we defer this to find out what the options are for the road allowance, of whether we can do the trade?
Well, I seek direction from council. Like, as I mentioned, there are many moving parts to this. There are many options available. And if council are proposing certain changes, staff would like to bring back reports just based on certain proposals to outline potential issues with each proposal that council is recommending.
The other entrance permits for, I understand that that's their driveways that have been there since before 1966. And when I read about the entrance permits, you can't do any work until you get approval from for the entrance permit. But these have been there since 1966, so they couldn't possibly comply with the application.
Is that a question for me? Again, I'm just relaying the comments from the Director of Public Works, who outlines that they require entrance permits. As mentioned, these buildings have been there, I think, since 1966. So these driveways are also quite old, likely. I think it's more of a formality so that we actually have entrance permits on record for each driveway. So I don't know if it would be an issue. They just have to go through that process.
Since the cottages have been grandfathered in, would it not make sense that the driveways are grandfathered in?
I'd just like to clarify that the cottages are not grandfathered. They are not legal non-complying. So through the process to purchase a shore road allowance, council has the option to recognize their location through the official plan, but they are not legal non-complying. To be legal non-complying, they have to have been legal in the first place, and because they're constructed on property that's not owned by the applicant, they're not legal.
Were they legal before building permits came in to effect, before 1966?
No, because were not constructed on the applicant's property. So if council were to sell the shore road allowance, we could recognize them. The official plan provides direction that says if it was assessed prior to 1977 and had a building permit, that council can recognize their location as being legal non-compliant, but they're not legal non-compliant.
Okay, so then the process would be for the owner to buy the shoreline allowance and the road allowance, and then we could get this package as close as possible. Okay. Okay, so then how do we start that process?
Well, that's the process before council today. So they are requesting that to purchase their shore road allowance, purchase a portion of the road allowance for Cardiff Lake Road. But as per the report and my lengthy intro there, it isn't recommended by staff to proceed that way. But it is a council decision, and we understand that.
Thanks, Jeff. There's a lot, just like you said, there's a lot of moving parts to this one. I'm with Tammy in regards to the entrance permit and grandfathered. If I realize if it's part of the framework of moving forward, then that can be weighed later on, which is kind of a side issue, but I'm all in favor of selling that shore road allowance, being it's been there forever. And if the source of pollution being the septic is going to be intentionally moved across the road, if the existing septic is there now and we make provision to get it across the road, both on parts 3 and the other house in parts 4 for later development, or if they want to put the septics across the road, that provides provision for both of those on that note. And I fully agree with about doing the land trade from one side of the road to the other. Looking at the topography of the ground there, it looks pretty flat and everything else. And I haven't driven out to see the site, but to me that all makes sense in terms of trying to keep this as tidy as we can make it and still arrive at a place to move forward for everybody on that note.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the basis of the second recommendation for council today, is that we can sell that shore road allowance, with the condition being that the property on the south side of the road and the north side of the road, which are both owned by the applicants, be used as one lot for development purposes from now on, which would need to be the case if they're going to be putting their septic systems over there, but they would have to update their deeds, do some zoning bylaw amendments, get some minor variances likely, or that could be maybe rolled into the zoning amendment application to recognize reduced setbacks and encroachments. But that is the essence of the second recommendation for you today, and I can go through those conditions one by one if you want, just to discuss. But if you want to exchange land, I do recommend this be deferred, and we can come back next month and get comments from the Director of Public Works.
Jeff, would it make sense to defer, would it make sense to say that we defer the request for purchasing part of the road allowance, but we approve the other requests?
I'll jump in here. Kira Dalkey's here. She wants to say, do you mind? Might add a couple things to hopefully make it better.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I have pictures here from, the cottages having been around 1977, having been there on the property. My preference is not to put them across the septic system across the lake. My preference is to have the septic system with the cottage on the south shore. Another issue that he's talking about requiring building permits. He's talking about platforms. The platforms that I have are 6x12 and 8x12, which are under the required circumference for the building permit. So they're put together side by side. I have pictures of this. They're talking about the outbuilding of the wood shed being not being in compliance, but once again, they'll have two sheds next to each other, neither of which are equaling the amount required. I have pictures if you want them. I've been doing some research on the septic system itself, and I understand that there's a system called the Makeway, which requires less space, and I would prefer to have that on the south side of 1252 Cardiff Lake Road, which is next to the cottage, as opposed to going under and on the north side.
I think that'll depend on Carl and the septic design. How close to the lake would that new system be?
It would require a minor variance. It's probably around, I would understand, maybe 10, 12 meters from the lake versus 15.
30 feet. It's pretty close. Well, my own view anyways, if we defer it and we get some more questions answered, whether, Rob goes out and has a look at the road, let's deal with that first, my own opinion, and then I wouldn't mind going to have a look at it too on that note, but we obviously try and do what's right for everybody here, but on the same note, to me, it's a tall order, and that would be up to whoever's approving the septics on that note. If it's a new and improved system, we go through this all the time in our septic stuff, but if it's been proven, then that's up to whoever, that's up to the building official who stamps the septic on that note on our side. So to me, the only thing that I would see that you'd have to definitely focus in on is making sure that septic's either proven that it can be that close to the lake, or it goes across the road, one or the other on that note. That's my own opinion.
That's fine.
What is your reasoning for not wanting to move the septic across the road, north side?
Well, there's a few reasons why. I'm not comfortable with going under the road, and I understand that pumping it across, there's like a hydro lines across the other side, and it would have to go beyond that. And I'm not really comfortable with the potential of all the fails that could happen. It's very level ground next to the cottage. And I would feel more comfortable if it was gravity, didn't require electricity, because as we know, trees are going down all the time around us and taking out the power. So I would like it to be as simple as possible, small as possible. And this looks like an environmentally, fabulous way to do it. And, I really want to do the right thing. So I would prefer this because there's less chance of fails in my mind.
Well, I know myself, I'd like to go out with whoever else wants to come and do a site visit, see this property with Rob and maybe Carl too. And we'll defer this, my opinion would be, and we'll come back here and just see if we can make this work, because there's a lot of moving parts here, needless to say. And so it's something that I think we should get our head around in regard to looking at pictures versus looking at the site itself is a big difference. And at least it is to me, I know that. So that's my recommendation, that what we should be doing here.
Well, can I just make a point? I caution council going out to site and I guess commenting too much on it, because if a system that is new technology, it sounds great, but if it requires a minor variance, that's up to the Committee of Adjustment whether or not they approve it. So there's no guarantees that can be made by this table that would be approved. So it's just something to keep in mind, that one of the moving parts is the minor variance minor, or will the committee say, well, you can put your septic across the road? So that would be a Committee of Adjustment, and so that's just something to keep in mind. And again, that's more time and money as well for the applicant. So it's just something, just one of the many factors. And Jeff has a further comment on that, maybe.
Yeah, and I just wanted to elaborate on what you said, Mallory. You touched on the tests of a variance that the Committee of Adjustment uses to make a decision. One of those tests is, does it comply with your official plan? And this water setback is for not only structures, but also for the septic system, says it should be strictly adhered to. So in the history of decisions of the Committee of Adjustment, they've been pretty consistent following that test of the official plan, and 99% of these are not approved based on that test. So I just wanted to caution moving forward because it can go forward. It is up to the Committee of Adjustment, but it's expensive to do these processes. And it does, as Mallory mentioned, it doesn't guarantee approval.
I'd like to just comment about Mallory in regard to some of us doing a site visit. I mean, would it not help for us to have a really good look at what we're working with? And at least what council's recommendation would be A or B. And
Yeah, I think it would help you guys get a sense of what's going on to the property, but my only thought was on that septic system and the minor variance process. It's just separate from council. So it's not, so I'm just letting council know that they can't say, okay, we'll get this figured out today and we'll clean it up and here we go. Because it's gonna be a separate administrative process through and legislative process through the Committee of Adjustment. If the septic is going that close to the water and is a new kind of system. So that was the only thing I wanted to caution council and the applicant on as well, that it's not all in council's hands.
well,
at
I
the end of the
understand
day.
that. I understand that. I already understand that we wouldn't be coming back and saying, start building.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand that totally, but I still would, to me, that's just my opinion. I'd like to see this property, to see exactly what we're dealing with. Yes, go ahead.
So just a thought, in order to maintain its compliance with the 15-meter setback from the water's edge. And Tammy's really great idea about taking the North Shore, and, taking some of the north side of the road for the roads department in order to facilitate that maybe that would be the best route to take. You can take some of my north side so I can put that septic in on the south side. 15 meters. And
That sounds like it'd work, but I'm repeating myself, but I'd still like to see it. I think that's Tammy, that was a very good suggestion. And like there's a lot of moving parts here, but and we're trying to do everything right, especially for the applicant and for everybody involved. So I think that that's what we should do. Is I'd like to have a look at it. If I know I'm not going out there to say, well, everything's fine. I'm just gonna know that what would it look like with the 15 meters on the other side of the road being ours and the septic system going here. And I think I'd have a better idea of what's going on. Any comments on that?
Back to, can we do what you said, Mallory, and start the process with obtaining the shoreline allowance and then defer the road allowance, and while we can go have a look at it? Is that possible? We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I might be able to weigh in on that while Mallory tries to correct her audio issues. So this is currently one application. If they were to start proceeding in not at the same time, then it would be separate application processes with separate fees. So it might create more expense for the applicant if we were to do that.
Okay. We'll leave it then.
Can you hear me right now?
Now we can.
Okay, I don't know why it does that. Sorry, everyone. So Jeff, are you saying that we should probably defer everything at once?
That's my recommendation, just because there are so many moving parts and there are
It
so
might
many
impact.
conditions attached to this that I think council has to maybe have an overall solution in mind so that we can review the impacts of that solution and then come up with appropriate conditions based on that.
may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
While all of this is going on, I would still like to be able to operate my business. So if I may ask you, if you could be so kind as to grant me a license of occupation so that I can get a short-term rental license so I can continue on with my business. I'd be very grateful.
I think you'd have to check with Carl on that because the septic is on a different property. So I'm not sure. That would be a Carl question, I believe.
We can take that back through Haley and Carl.
Probably that's the direction we'd have to go. I don't think we could make that decision here, that's for sure. Jeff, you have a comment? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and perhaps option one might be a way to proceed, but instead of denying the road closing applications, they defer them. So option one was to recommend that both the road allowances be denied and that the license of occupation be permitted, subject to conditions. But we could always just proceed with deferral of the road closing applications, but permit the license of occupation to proceed subject to the conditions. But again, those conditions relate to septic permits, entrance permits. There's several zoning compliance issues and encroachments. But that's an option.
Sorry. What was that, Pat?
I cleared that up.
Yeah. Well, needless to say, we want to help you out, but I think we definitely have to talk to Carl and Rob. And I definitely think that we should be making a site visit, in my opinion, just so we can just see what is there to work with. And now issuing her the license of occupation so she can continue her business. Again, is that through Rob and Carl?
Well, I think maybe by the next meeting, if we have all these answers, all these questions answered, we'll know.
Yeah.
Next meeting's not far away either.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
December 13th.
Yeah. Does that sound good? Okay. Did you get that, Mallory?
That we're deferring for now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I'll read that. Be it resolved that council defers files L07-RO-2024-11 and L07-LO-2024-004. And that's the resolution.
We'll know in 2 weeks what we can do.
Okay.
Honestly, we don't know. Put around a circle here for an hour.
Right.
Well, did we get a mover and a seconder for that? Walt, I can't hear you if you're talking.
Carmen, Tammy, and
Carmen, Tammy?
yeah,
Okay,
it was moved and approved. Thank you.
okay. The next question I have is if we can move the Weber file up, because we also have someone waiting on the screen to hear that one. Is that okay, Walt?
It sure is. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna find it here, and that will be Chris, I think, yeah, speaking to that one.
Okay, thank you. I can start on this one. So the application is for severance of proposal that would sever the subject property into one new lot, so one severed and one retained lot. The retained lot is to contain the existing single detached dwelling and private services, and the proposed severed lot will eventually obtain or contain a single detached dwelling for rural residential use. There are no circulation requirements in the Planning Act for severance proposals. However, internal municipal departments were circulated for comment. And to date, we've received comment, but the comments were from the applicant's planning consultant, which outlines the following. We noted that the staff report included a recommended condition to require zoning bylaw amendment application for condition number 4. I understand that the basis of this is to ensure conformity with section 14.4.5 of the municipal's official plan, which requires lots that are created for rural residential uses on municipal roads to have a minimum of 30-meter setback. Their response to this is that in response to this, the recommended condition requiring the zoning bylaw amendment, it is their opinion that this condition should be removed on the basis that section 14.4.5 of the municipal's official plan, specifically paragraph 3, allows for exceptions to the requirement if lots are created as infilling or an extension to the existing rural residential uses. The proposed consent application is an infill lot on the north side of Old Donald Road and would meet this criteria for an exception to this official plan policy. Furthermore, the current zone requirement for the front yard setback is 10.5 meter. And in their opinion, the 10.5 meter setback would ensure that the protection and preservation of the rural landscape and vegetated buffer as outlined in the section 14.4.5. The 10.5 meter setback required as of right would also be consistent with the rural residential uses along the north side of Old Donald Road. So staff comments to that first point is staff have no concerns with the opinion provided by the consultant for condition number 4. The policy does allow, as noted, the exceptions to recognize if proposed lot is created as an infilling or extension to the existing rural residential. However, it is council's discretion whether the proposed meets that exception, so staff can't make that authorization, or that we don't have the authority to make that, so it's up to council's discretion if they're okay with that opinion for that one. And then the second point with this was with respect to recommended condition 7. This condition requires site development plan to address suitable building envelopes, including septic, well, and entrance location. It is their opinion that this could be removed as the proposed severed lot is an infill lot with existing homes on either side and is almost 3 acres in size with no irregular landscape topography features. The proposed lot meets the minimum lot standards for the applicable zone and provides sufficient area to accommodate a future dwelling, septic, and well, while complying with the required setbacks. They would also suggest that this condition could be addressed through condition number 5, where they would provide the municipality with a site plan showing this information. So staff's response to that is that staff have no concerns with the opinion provided by the consultant for condition number 7. As noted, typically the site development plan is required for lots that are a lot tighter, smaller, and that have identified natural constraints on them, that it be prepared by an OLS to ensure the lot is developable. However, given the size of the lot, with little to no natural constraints identified on the severed lot, site plan prepared by the consultant should suffice in this instance. So given the above, the official plan does allow for flexibility, but it is at council's discretion. Therefore, staff look to council for direction on these 2 items. Other than that, staff recommend that council support the general principle of the proposed consent as submitted, subject to the conditions and comments received through the public review process. And again, staff just look for council's direction for those 2 above noted, condition 4 and condition 7.
Anybody here have any other questions? Barry, you're okay? Tam? Pat? Okay. You have a resolution, please? Jeff's got a question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so sorry, and I think as Chris mentioned, he's seeking a bit of clarification. So the applicants have submitted questions to council regarding conditions number 4 and 7. So condition 4 requires a zoning amendment to put a 30-meter setback on the rural residential lot. They are noting that because it's already rural residential, that additional zoning amendment application is unnecessary. So they're asking that condition 4 be removed. The applicants are also asking that condition 7 be removed, which requires a site development plan. They've noted that a site plan will be provided as part of condition 5, which is a severance agreement, and that the lot does meet all the minimum requirements. So there's plenty of size to build on the property without the need for that site development plan locating the building and the services. So we're just looking for some direction from council with regards to condition 4 and condition 7.
And staff have no problem with removing these conditions, but it's up to council to direct staff to do so. And if you guys want to direct staff to remove them, then we will.
I don't have a problem with them. I know that property back in there, and there's lots of room for everything in there, so I don't have a problem with removing it at all. 4 and
Is it-
7.
Anybody else have any problem with removing those two conditions?
No.
No?
Okay, so I'll read the resolution in full just because it's gonna read a bit different. So here I go. Be it resolved that council support the general principle of file number D00SV 2024-13 Lands of Weber, subject to the following conditions and the comments received through the public review process. 1. A copy of a draft reference plan will be submitted to the planning department of the municipality of Dysart et al. For review and comment prior to the registration of the plan. 2. Registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes. 3. Registered owner to pay all administration fees owed to the municipality of Dysart et al. 4. Subject to the owner entering into a 51 subsection 26 agreement to the satisfaction of the municipality of Dysart et al. 5. Subject to a parkland dedication fee of $1,000 per severed lot. And 6. Prior to the endorsement of the deeds, the municipality is to provide a clearance letter to the Haliburton County Land Division Committee confirming that conditions 1 to 5 have been fulfilled. And I can't hear.
Pat moved and Carm second. And
Okay.
All in favor? Great, passed. Thank you.
So I think we can start from the beginning again.
Okay, thank you. So this item 11A on the agenda, this is for the file that we heard earlier this morning for a zoning bylaw amendment for D14 ZB 2024-010 Emerson and Parsons. There were no public comments or concerns, and council had no comments or concerns, and the recommendation was to approve the application.
Okay, any comments? Mover and a seconder?
I'll read her off here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-102 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2005-120 for the lands at Emerson and Parsons, which consists of part lot 6, concession 3, 19R-5079, parts 5 and 8 in the geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al., which would change the zone on the rural subject property from rural type 1 zone and environmental protection zone to rural residential-23 exception zone and rural type 2 zone and environmental protection zone, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Now, mover and a seconder. Carm and Barry? It's all approved. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one on the agenda is item 11B. This is for bylaw 2024-103, which is a removal of a holding provision. And this is for the lands of Hot Pond Enterprises, which is on Maple Ave. And this one is on April 25th, 2023, council approved a site-specific zoning amendment to change the zone of the property from general commercial -4 exception zone, general commercial -4 exception zone withholding provision, and urban residential type 1 zone to urban residential type 3-15 exception zone withholding provision. Section 3C of the bylaw 2023-47 had set out various conditions that must be met prior to removal of the holding symbol, allowing zoning to become urban residential type 3-15 exception zone. The owner has requested that the holding provision be removed for the property as the conditions set out in section 3C of the bylaw 2023-47 have been satisfied, enabling the removal of the holding symbol and thereby allowing the property to be zoned urban residential type 3-15 exception zone. All neighboring property owners within 120 meters were circulated, and to date, no comments have been received, and staff recommend that council approve the bylaw, which is the bylaw to lift the holding provision on the subject property.
Resolution, please, Mallory.
Yep. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-103, which is an amending bylaw to remove the holding provision from bylaw 2023-47 for the lands of Hot Pond Enterprises Corporation, which consists of Part Lot 12, Lot 6, Block T, Plan 1, in the geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al., which would change the zoning from general commercial -4 exception zone, general commercial -4 exception zone with holding provision, and urban residential type 1 zone to urban residential type 3-15 exception zone. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. Who has the next one? C, Chris or Jeff?
Yep, if I may, so this is a returning file. At the meeting in July, council deferred a road closing bylaw and a deeming bylaw for this property because we had not yet received registered surveys from the surveyor. We have now, and subject to council direction, staff recommend approval of the road closing bylaw and the deeming bylaw.
Okay. Any comments, any questions? Okay, resolution, please, Mallory.
I'll start reading. Be it resolved that council approve bylaw 2024-73, being a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original road allowance in front of Part Lot 6, Concession 10 in the geographic township of Dudley. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. And further, be it resolved that council approve bylaw 2024-74, which is a bylaw to deem Lot 3, Registered Plan 447 in the Township of Dudley, not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of Section 50, subsection 3 of the Planning Act. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, the corporate seal attached thereto. This bylaw is intended to allow Lot 3, Registered Plan 447, to merge with the Shore Road allowance, which has been closed and conveyed pursuant to bylaw 2024-73.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. Next one, the road closing bylaw for purchase of road, Shore Road allowance.
Yeah, so this is a bylaw for a shore road allowance application in front of the lands of Panko on Blue Lake. We did provide notice and we received one comment from the County of Haliburton. As usual, their comments were general in nature, so we will provide a copy to the applicants, but there's nothing that raises alarms for council. Subject to council direction, staff recommend approval of the bylaw.
Anybody have questions? No questions? Okay. Could I have
I'll go ahead and read it. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-104, being a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original Shore Road allowance in front of Part Lot 20, Concession 9 in the geographic township of Harburn, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
All in favor? Thank you.
Did we get a mover and seconder, Walt?
We did mover and seconder, Barry and Tammy.
Perfect.
Thank you. Next one, E, application.
Yes, thank you. So Rice Lake Properties Corporation owns property between Highway 118 and Haliburton Lake Road that is bisected by an original allowance for road. They own both sides of the road allowance and have made application to purchase the road allowance for the purpose of consolidating their lands. The subject lands are vacant in the vicinity of the road allowance, and staff recommend approval to process the application.
Anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I do, Murray. There's some survey going on in there right now with regards to Peterson, so I think until the Peterson survey is finalized, we should defer this until we know for sure all the survey, like they're having the survey done, so wait till we get the survey and then bring it back. That makes sense?
Has it, anybody got any other comments?
Yeah, I echo Carm's comments here. Just so that would eliminate access to that one lake that's in the center of that property. Is that correct too? Or am I looking at, or am I in the wrong spot here? Oh, anyways, until. it's surveyed, then we can
In
have-
terms of this road allowance, I don't think there's a lake that it would block access to.
There's a beaver pond that it bisects. I think, well, they call it a beaver pond in the original surveys. I think that's what Pat's referring to though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Originally was a beaver pond, maybe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, would you like a resolution to defer?
I believe that's the decision of council. Yes, thank you.
Okay, 1 second. So be it resolved that council defers for processing application L07-RO-2024-10.
All in favor?
I just need a mover and seconder for that one.
Pat and Barry? All approved? You. And now we're on to F, another road shore allowance.
Yes, thank you. Just making sure I'm on the right file. Yes, Lands of Cannon. So this is a returning file. This report relates to an application to purchase a shore road allowance in front of the Lands of Cannon on Halliburton Lake. At their meeting in August, council declared the land surplus subject to a condition that the owners renaturalize their shoreline area, which is being maintained. Mr. and Mrs. Cannon are requesting that council reconsider their condition attached to the original resolution. They would like to see the condition removed altogether or amended to reflect the recommendations from the chief building official. So as per the report, the chief building official, after meeting on site with councillors McKechnie and Boyce, provided comments to the applicants via email. He noted that in his opinion, in the absence of any contaminants, that a 3-meter wide naturalized area along the tree line was considered a good compromise. In their submission, the applicants note that they have never removed vegetation in that 3-meter naturalized border around the shoreline. They have also agreed to plant 3 small native plants. And having said that, in their submission, the applicants do admit to maintaining the shoreline area beyond that 3-meter buffer using a lawnmower 3 to 4 times per year. So just providing our comments, well, we respect the comments provided and understand the attempt to provide a solution for the applicants. It should be noted that the recommended solution does not comply with the municipality's official plan. And I can review that policy for council, but you may want to look at the photo taken by staff, which shows a picnic table and 2 chairs located on a large cleared area adjacent to the shoreline. And I think it's page 17 of this report. So what the policy says, and this is the official plan. So when making decisions, council should have take direction from these policies. And it says that all owners of shoreline lots be encouraged to leave those lands within the setbacks substantially undisturbed, up to the full depth of the setbacks. So for this property, that shoreline setback is 20 meters as opposed to 3. The policy says additionally, where the shoreline setback has been disturbed by past activities, that the owner will be encouraged to restore that setback to a natural state. It talks about soil and vegetation within the setback, that they should be disturbed as little as possible to preserve the impression from the lake that the shoreline is undeveloped. That clearing should be restricted to the minimum required for access, the safety of residents, and a limited view to the water. Lastly, the policy does note in this section that when considering individual applications, council can require as a condition of development that that shoreline setback be maintained in an undisturbed condition, but also where it has been disturbed, that it be restored to a natural state using native vegetation. So based on these policies, council can impose a condition if they choose to restore that shoreline. Staff would like to point out that this is a land sale application, so these lands are currently owned by the municipality. So council can add whatever conditions they want to the land sale. And this is an opportunity for council to ensure that these lands are renaturalized as per our policies before selling the land. Once sold, the opportunity, it is very difficult to try and to get shorelines renaturalized when we don't own that land anymore. But subject to any questions from council, based on that policy direction, we recommend that council maintain their original condition, which is to renaturalize that shoreline area. I'm happy to answer any questions council has.
Yes, Jeff, I'm speaking for myself, but Barry and I were out there and also with Carl. And to me, it doesn't look like the shoreline has been really touched or bothered with any type of digging or cutting of trees for a long time. And they have agreed to plant some native plants there. I believe it's already in the process. So I surely don't have any issue with this application.
Yeah, I don't know, like, to me, the shoreline is pretty natural for most of the property. They do have, as Walt and I have been there, like, we're not talking about a lawn here that's been fertilized or anything like that. This, I do agree, they've maybe cut this lawn 3 or 4 times during the summer. And basically, I think they'd be cutting more weeds than they would be cutting grass. I don't know how to really say to handle it, but I'm perfectly fine with the way everything looks. If we do it here, like, this is opening up a whole another ballgame, I think.
It looked natural without putting these plants in, but as you can see, they've already started that process. So I'm okay with it myself.
Looks like quite a level lot too, is it, Walt? Like,
Well,
it
it's
doesn't look
very,
like there's
very flat.
there's very minimal runoff at best.
Oh, it's really flat and very deep.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay,
I'm fine with it.
you're fine. Okay. We have a resolution, please.
So Jeff, let me know if this satisfies what you need on your end. Be it resolved that council removes the direction that the shoreline setback shall be restored to a natural state for application L07-R0-2024-13.
Yep, that sounds good.
That sounds good. Okay, so I just
Yep.
need a mover and a seconder.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat and Tammy. All in favor? Great, thank you. Next one, G.
Yeah, so the applicants advised, sorry, I'll just give a little intro. So Sean and Catherine Gorman are making an application to purchase a part of the road allowance for Limburner Drive, and they want to exchange a portion of their lands for a new turnaround. But yesterday, the applicants advised that they wish to defer this file so that they can provide more information in support of their application. So staff recommend that this be deferred.
Okay,
So I'll read that if council's comfortable.
thank you.
Be it resolved that council defers file number L07-R0 or sorry -RO-2024-20.
Okay, you have a mover and a seconder? Pat and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. Next one, H.
So the next item is a joint application by the Kippings and their neighbors, the Garleys and Greggs, who wish to purchase the original road allowance located between their properties. They too yesterday requested that this be deferred so that they could explore the option of purchasing their shore road allowance as well as the original road allowance. So subject to any questions, staff recommend that this be deferred as well.
Great.
So I'll read that. Be it resolved that council defers file number L07-RO-2024-18.
Yeah, mover and second. Barry and Pat, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we have I.
Yes, moving along. So this item is a proposed parking agreement for 210 Highland Street. The owner is in the process of converting their building into a restaurant and have submitted a request to council to address deficient parking spaces on site. Based on the zoning calculations, the property requires a minimum of 13 parking spaces. The applicants have indicated that they can accommodate 6 parking spaces on site, including the 2 required accessible parking spaces. So because of that limited space, they cannot accommodate 7 parking spaces on their property. last month, council did update their cash in lieu of parking facilities bylaw. So now within the villages, or within the settlement areas, I should say, the fee is set at $2,000 for each deficient parking space. So based on the 7 required, this calculates to $14,000. Given that the proposed restaurant is seasonal in nature and the impending winter being the slow season, the applicants are requesting that whether payment can be deferred until spring. So staff support the request subject to the parking agreement and the cash in lieu of parking payment. However, we do seek direction from council with regards to their request to defer payment until spring. If council is agreeable, the resolution does include a deadline of June 1st, 2025, but that's at the council's discretion.
Anybody have any comments?
I think that's fine. I understand their situation. They're going into the winter time and I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I support that too.
I also support it. No problem. Okay. Resolution,
Okay,
please.
I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-105, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a parking agreement with 100-100-9370 Ontario Incorporated for property located at 210 Highland Street, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto, and further that the registered owner shall pay cash in lieu of parking in the amount of $14,000 as per the municipal bylaw 2024-98. If payment in full has not been received as of June 1st, 2025, the outstanding balance will be added to the property taxes for the subject lands.
Mover and a seconder. Barry and Carr, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we have I.
So the next 2 items are similar and they are good news stories. So the first one is the memorandum of understanding with the Potash Trailblazers Snowmobile Club. And this is to recognize and legalize the location of all of their snowmobile trails where they are located on municipal property. So this includes a total of 58 locations. This request is supported by Policy 32, which is a policy to govern the use of road allowances. And what that states is that where council deems it appropriate, that the applicant enter into a license of occupation. So this memorandum of understanding is quite similar to a license of occupation to recognize encroachments on municipal land. It should note that this master agreement for all trails will make administration going forward much easier as opposed to handling each trail section separately one at a time. So staff support this and seek direction from council regarding the MOU.
Any comments on this? Everybody okay with it? Okay.
You bet.
Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that council authorizes the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Potash Trailblazers Snowmobile Club to formalize and legalize the location of all snowmobile trails located on lands owned by the municipality. The mayor and clerk will execute the MOU upon receipt of proof of insurance, and further that the attached MOU replaces and rescinds all previous MOUs and permission to use road allowance approvals with the Potash Trailblazers Snowmobile Club for use of municipal lands for snowmobile purposes.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Pat, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, next one, request for.
Yep, so the next item is the same. It's a memorandum of understanding with the Halberton County Snowmobile Association, sorry. And this includes approximately 125 trail locations on municipal lands. The one difference is that they have requested that council waive the fees for the application, both any application fees and legal fees. To support their request, they note that the club is not a not-for-profit organization and does not have significant financial resources available to pay for this. They further outline the economic benefit that snowmobiles bring to the area. Similar to the last one, it's supported by Policy 32. It's going to make administration going forward a lot easier. And it should be noted that council did waive the fees for the Potash Trailers Snowmobile Club. So there is a bit of precedence here, but it is up to council. So we do seek council direction regarding this MOU and their request to waive the fees.
Anybody have any concerns?
Go ahead, Carl.
It's as long as it's the same as what we've done for potash, because Tall Pines is probably gonna come to us too soon, one as well, so as long
Yeah.
as we're doing the same for them all.
Okay, that's good.
I agree.
That makes sense.
Keep them open.
Resolution, please.
Okay. Be it resolved that council authorizes the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Halliburton County Snowmobile Association to formalize and legalize the location of all snowmobile trails located on lands owned by the municipality. The mayor and clerk will execute the MOU upon the receipt of proof of insurance and general approval from the Ministry of Natural Resources and adjacent municipalities/townships for boundary road allowances which are under joint jurisdiction. And further that the attached MOU replaces and rescinds all previous MOUs and permissions to use road allowance approvals with the HCSA for use of municipal lands for snowmobile purposes, and further that council agrees to waive the application legal fees associated with the memorandum of understanding with the Halliburton County Snowmobiler Association.
Mover and seconder. Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Thank you. Just out of my own, wondering how much this costs. How much would we be waiving there?
So the application fee for that is $750. Because we are using the memorandum of understanding that is provided by the applicant, it's not anticipated that we'll need any legal fees, so it should be a flat $750.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next one with L.
Yeah, so the next one is we did L, so we're on to M now, which is the Lands of Nelson for severance proposal. The application is for a severance proposal that would sever a portion of the subject property to convey and merge with the benefiting lot for the benefit of a driveway access to their property. There are no circulation requirements for a severance proposal. However, internal staff departments were circulated, and to date, no comments have been received. Staff recommend that council support the general principle of the proposed consent as submitted, subject to the conditions and comments received through the public review process.
Does anybody have any comments? All right. Resolution, please, Mallory.
Okay. Be it resolved that council support the general principle for file number D00-SV-2024-12 Lands of Nelson, subject to the comments and conditions outlined in the staff report.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Pat, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Hook, line, and sinker.
Yes, thank you. So at the council meeting in October, council received a delegation from the property owners and their agent regarding municipal pre-consultation report. The pre-consultation report from the planning department was in response to a contemplated rooftop patio addition to the Hook, Line, and Sinker restaurant located on Highland Street. So the delegates questioned staff's interpretation of the zoning bylaw, specifically with regards to the gross floor area calculation for the restaurant, and really whether the rooftop patio actually should be defined as a restaurant or should it be defined as a deck. I think that's the main argument here. So the delegates' concern is that the inclusion of the rooftop patio as a restaurant will result in the need for additional parking spaces. Council requested that staff return with a report outlining the interpretation of the zoning bylaw. So that's what I'm doing here today. But I want to outline that we did get into a lot of discussion about parking requirements, but the purpose of this report is to clarify the municipality's zoning bylaw interpretation. And again, it's specifically why the rooftop patio addition, in staff's opinion, is defined as a restaurant as opposed to a deck. So to support the interpretations, the report includes the definitions from the zoning bylaw for deck, restaurant, and gross floor area. And going through this interpretation, I think it's important that we focus on the use of the structure. So the applicants question staff's determination that the rooftop patio be defined as the restaurant. Staff note that the definition of a restaurant includes the words a building or part of a building where food is offered for sale. So staff are under the interpretation that the rooftop patio is considered part of the building as per the definition, and that the applicants have noted that they will be offering food for sale on this rooftop patio. When reviewing the definition of the deck, it is defined as a structure that is usable as outdoor living space. And sometimes it's open to interpretation. In this instance, staff agree that the deck is the structure. However, the difference is the use of the deck and how the deck is being used. And the proposed use of the rooftop patio deck is to offer food for sale. So the structure may be considered a deck, but in staff's opinion, the use of that deck is a restaurant. In terms of gross floor area, the applicants question whether the rooftop patio should be included in that calculation because the definition and provision state that gross floor area should be measured from the outside of the exterior walls and that there are no exterior walls on that second floor adjacent to the rooftop patio. Staff's opinion is that there are still exterior walls to the building. So in this instance, when measuring from the outside surface of the exterior walls, the measurement should be taken from the outside surface of the exterior walls for the first story. It does not specify that it has to be for the second story. When calculating gross floor area for part of the story, which is the instance in this case, gross floor area shall be measured to the center of the relevant interior walls. So in this instance, there is a residential unit on the second story and the rooftop patio. So there is a dividing wall between them, and that's the extent of the measurement for gross floor area on that side of the rooftop patio. I know it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but in conclusion, staff's opinion is the gross floor area for the rooftop patio should be measured from the outside walls of the building on the main level and the interior wall on the other side. And I know I said, even though parking requirements are not the purpose of this, I just wanted to touch on it because it was heavily discussed last month. And it comes down to the zoning, the way the zoning bylaw calculates the parking space requirements for the property. So the bylaw requires that the owners or occupant of any structure provide parking spaces in accordance with the permitted use. When calculating parking space requirements for a restaurant, there are two calculations outlined in the zoning bylaw. And the bylaw specifies whichever calculation creates a greater number of parking spaces being required, that's the one to be applied to. So the first calculation is 1 space for each 9 square meters of gross floor area. And the second calculation is 1 parking space for each 4 persons that may be legally accommodated at any one time. So when calculating these spaces based on the gross floor area, the total number of additional spaces required is 38. So they need 38 additional spaces based on that calculation. When calculating based on the number of persons that can be accommodated, no additional parking spaces are required. So again, as I mentioned, the zoning bylaw says whatever, it's the greater of the two. So based on this, it is the gross floor area that's in play, and 38 additional parking spaces are required. So that's our interpretation. We advise the zoning provisions are interpreted and applied with a consistent approach here. And we've done this for everybody. And we ran this through both all planning and building staff before we came to this determination, and we all agreed. It should be noted if council is considering a change to this interpretation, staff are concerned it will result in parking issues where additional capacity might not exist. Not just for this application, but for other similar proposals. So the intent of parking is to ensure there's sufficient parking when there's maximum capacity of the building, not when it's during winter capacity. We do appreciate the applicant's submission and we really like the restaurant, but ultimately the rooftop patio will increase the number of people attending site and it will require additional parking spaces. And these spaces aren't available on site, so eventually they will spill off site, likely to the road or to the municipal parking lot. So that completes my report and the outline of our interpretation internally here. And I'm happy to answer any questions council have, but we staff recommend that council support the internal interpretation of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, Barry, you have a question?
How many extra customers are they saying this will generate?
That is a great question. I don't know if I know that off the top of my head. I think the occupant's still max occupancy is still going to be around 112.
So they're not changing their maximum occupancy, it's just they're just moving the parts around a little bit.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Okay. Jeff, is there any definition in terms of whether the gross floor area has to have a roof or not?
No, I know they mentioned enclosed, but I think they were referring to a deck. It just, let me just pull that up real quick. I have that in the report. Give me 1 second here. So what it says is the sum total of every areas of every floor of part or all of a structure measured between the outside surfaces of the exterior walls of the structure. When calculated for part of the floor, gross floor area shall be measured, to the center line of the relevant interior walls. And then it talks about gross floor area calculations excluding decks, patios, and verandas. But if you look at the zoning bylaw, the definition of enclosed also doesn't require a roof. It says walls would make it enclosed too.
Well, now there's really only one, really only one wall, which is the one that abuts the upstairs dwelling. Is that correct? I think.
That's correct. I think, as per my understanding, I think that's the only one. So that definition of enclosed does exclude a deck or patio that has no walls other than the one that attaches it to the building.
Well, I'm gonna run my mouth off here for a minute, but this is a zebra on that note. We've been into a couple of them today, but if essentially not creating more capacity, there limits the limit as it sits now. So the definitions we're putting forward are kind of trivial on that note to define, I'm not going to say a penalization, but added parking spaces, but really they're not increasing their customer load on the building. So on one hand, if the greater of the two is 38 parking spots, on the other hand, we have 0 because they're not creating more parking. My offer, or my comment on it would maybe to cut it in half and give them $20,000 worth of parking for what they need, because to me it's kind of a like I said, it's a gray area all the way around it. There's not an easy way to do it on that note, but that's what I would suggest we do on that note. And I do realize we need more parking in town and everything like that, but we, in certain places, we can't be deterring business on that note in regards to business expansion or whatever in that regard. And again, if they're not increasing their load of patrons, it kind of defeats the argument of paying a lot of money for parking that really is not really the increase. That's my opinion.
A question?
Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
Jeff, what did we do with McKex when they put their patio seating outside on the upper level there? I know they moved their tables from downstairs up, but did they have any financial responsibility for parking when that happened?
Yes, thank you. I was not involved with anything at that time, so I would have to go back and look. And I could bring that back. The one thing I do note, and I might have misspoken, so I'm just looking at the report. My understanding is the existing occupancy is 112. I believe the applicants are saying it might go up to 150, and I really wish I had this information on hand. But regardless, council does have options. This is a zoning requirement. If you want to reduce the number of parking spaces required, you would need a variance or a zoning amendment. The other option is, as Pat suggested, is to provide cash in lieu, and you can set the price at whatever you want. The bylaw sets it at 2,000 per space, but you can recognize however many spaces you want. As per the report, we do caution that because the parking lot located across the road has a total of 77 spaces, and we've already allocated, I'm trying to think, 27 plus 6, so 33 spaces. If we were to do another 20 or so. Out of those 77 spaces, we would have already allocated 53 spaces, meaning there's only going to be 24 left for the public, for the park, for all park uses, for the boat launch, for the visitor center, all that stuff. So we do caution you on that, but it is up to council how they want to proceed.
The other angle too, to look at it is that, you know, yes, we're increasing the load on that parking, but again, it's for 3 months of the year. And that's again, my opinion, or 4. But if we're able to expand that parking area down towards the walking path towards the plane some more to give us some more parking spots along there might help. But that's a topic for another time on that note, but.
Yeah, so parking, as I mentioned, that it really wasn't the intent of this report today. It was really to look at the zoning interpretation of whether a rooftop patio is a restaurant or whether a rooftop patio is a deck. Obviously, there are going to be parking implications based on the decision, which can come back. But that's what we're looking for, is just some sort of council consensus on that interpretation.
Needless to say, I have a little experience in this, in this matter. And I'm not here to try to pick on any new business coming into town. I think it's fantastic. They're both the two new ventures that are here now, and the second one going to be here soon, probably in the spring. It's a great addition to our community. But in my past experience, restaurant owners have had to pay for parking spots. And I know at McKex, I did a lot of expansion, and I paid every time for my expansions. So what I don't understand is if they have 120, if I read this correctly, Jeff, you said they have a capacity right now of 112 with their patio out and inside, and then they're going to add 50 more with the new patio upstairs. Is that correct?
So as per the report, it talks about 38 spaces required for the occupancy of 150. So yeah, my understanding right now is it is set at 112. It might be just outlining that they have 38 spaces currently, and that's would allow a total occupancy of 150. So I'd have to go back and look at what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to move stuff around not to increase occupancy, but I'd have to go back and look.
I think, sorry, well, but I think last time when we seen this, if I remember right, they were taking some away from the patio out front and add them to the upstairs. Now, I thought we went over that before. I can't find it on this drawing. I'm struggling to see it, but I
Sorry,
think.
Walt, can I just make a comment on that? I believe the patio out front isn't included in their parking. They don't have parking for the patio out front, correct, Jeff? Because it's not in the building. So essentially, the patio out front isn't calculated currently. So yes, they're removing some from the patio out front, but I don't believe we have that parking to begin with already. But
No.
Jeff, you comment.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, because as I mentioned, there's 2 different calculations for parking. So under the gross floor area calculation, that ground floor patio out front is not included. But if we're doing the calculation based on people that can be legally accommodated at one time, then that ground floor patio is included. I know, clear as mud.
Well, like how does that make sense? And I'm only making these comments because I represent all the taxpayers in the municipality of Dysart. And we have a big parking problem here. And so we're going to allow these 2 new restaurants to come in, and great restaurants, and have no parking. And who's going to create the parking? Dysart's going to create it. Who's going to pay for all the parking that we're going to create? Taxpayers. So, I mean, I'm not trying to punish them or anything like that, but I just think that if you think, like, I own my restaurant, and I know that back in my era, we were always worried we had too many people in there in July and August, the head count, but we were still letting them in. There's only so many days up here where you're really, really busy, of course. So, I mean, if we're going to allow them to basically pay nothing for 38 more spots, you can tell me all you want that they're gonna eliminate downstairs and move this here and move that there. Maybe they are, I don't know. But last year they were running at capacity of, you're saying 112, and they're adding another 38 seats. Well, to me, that's 150 seats occupancy. And so, like I say, I worry about the taxpayers having to pay for a lot of the parking we're gonna have to create here. And
We don't really have a long-term parking plan in town on that note. Well, we're trying to find that with,
well, we're talking about eliminating the rink.
yeah, but I think there's 85,000 in the parking in lieu fund now, if I might be wrong.
So we're gonna set a precedent here that restaurants come in and they don't have to pay for parking.
No, we just told the new restaurant that they got cash in lieu, right? Of the new Italian restaurant in town, on that note. And like I said a minute ago, we can, again, this hook, line and sinker is an anomaly in terms of what you interpret a deck is and what's not, on that note. And to me, that's kind of trivial on that note. But
The deck's a deck.
okay, then it's not included. Because they got.
When
patio
you
front.
were serving people food and getting money.
Okay, but they're doing that on the patio. It's the same thing.
It's not the building envelope. We're getting way off track here. I think to what the question is with this motion that we're doing, that we're supporting the interpretation that a rooftop patio meets the definition of a restaurant. So I think we're veering off the path of what's the question for this staff report.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, like when we create that new parking that we're probably gonna do, who's gonna pay for that?
Well, like I said, there's already a fund there, but again, as new businesses come and go, that's where that money goes. There's already a fund there available for it, but I'm not saying we give it to them for nothing on the same note, like for zero.
Yeah.
But if we were able to come to an agreement here of making it work for them, we get some money for parking. Is it a deck or is it a patio? Are they increasing their share amounts? I don't know. On the same note, it's what you say and what really happens at the end of the day. But if we were to determine that whatever parking that we deem as feasible down there could be an equation of $20,000, I think that works for me in terms of getting them what they got to be and also adding money into our kitty for parking on that note.
Well, we're kind of splitting hairs here, but if we do the two different calculations, we're gonna get $76,000 on one of them, right? Am I right on that? 38 times 2?
Yeah.
Or if you do the other calculation, we don't get anything. So now we're saying we're likely doing our calculation the right way, the way Jeff and them are talking about it. But like I'm saying, why don't we just split that then? Just say one way you figure it out at 0, one way you figure it out at 76,000. Let's split it in the middle. We can do that under our discretion, right?
You can. Again, I don't think that's a decision council has to make today. If the applicants wish to proceed through that avenue, then they will have to make an application to amend their existing parking agreement, because they do have an existing parking agreement. That would come back to council, and you could have that discussion again on what would be fair compensation and that. Today, I think we're just looking to determine whether, again, they've questioned our interpretation of that rooftop patio, whether it's a restaurant or just merely a deck. And staff of both the planning and building departments think it is a restaurant. It's being used as a restaurant. There's going to be tables, they're serving food. But we wanted to bring that forward to councils for their consideration based on the request from the applicant. So that's the only thing we're really looking at today.
Walt, I have a suggestion. Just because I think this might come up. We have a town that has limited parking, so it might continue to come up, right? And staff need direction. So if another restaurant pops up and they have a massive rooftop. They have a massive rooftop patio, and that's where the majority of their seating is. Are we saying that's not the restaurant? Whatever's the restaurant is right inside that building. So this is what we need to know. Going forward, would council like, and we can go by counselor, if a counselor goes into a restaurant, do they consider if they're outside on top on a patio, do they consider that part of the restaurant? Or do they say, no, it's not, because it's not inside the walls? So that's what you guys have to think about and tell us as staff. Do you consider that or not? And then if they want to get a reduction or want to amend their parking agreement, they can come forward and request it. And then
Okay,
we could
that's
do it at that
exactly
time.
what I was just gonna say, Mallory, is that if we disagree with, or if we agree with staff right now, accept that calculation, then they can come back at a later time and say they want to negotiate a deal with us to the money situation with the park.
Definitely, but it will clarify for staff going forward how we calculate it, and then people can always come and ask for some sort of amendment to their parking agreement to get
I'm
something
okay
else.
with that. I don't know if that works for everybody else.
I'm okay with it.
but-
One question, Pat. I think you were checking this out. Is there 18 spots behind the restaurant?
Full 18, well, I think there was 16. They had a couple dumpsters there and stuff like that, so
16?
I think so.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, if I may, the existing parking agreement recognizes 16 parking spaces out back.
I can verify that at the next meeting as well. On that note.
Tammy, do you have a question?
I'm confused. I don't know which way to go because there's advantages and disadvantages of both ways. And basically a patio or a deck, you know that they're only using it for a few months out of the year. And they're not using it when the parking spots cost the most for the township, as plowing and salting and everything else. So there is that to take into consideration as well, than rather a full-time restaurant that's using them all the time, all year round. I have no idea yet.
We're plowing that parking lot down the docks, by the docks,
Yes. Yes,
maintaining it.
yes, but the patio and the deck are only summertime use. And that's the most of our expense once.
Well,
once the
there's
parking-
less parking spots because of all the snow also. Well, weekends here are pretty full with snowmobilers and. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, so the zoning bylaw requires a certain amount of parking spaces, and it's not based on cost or season. It's to ensure that there's sufficient parking when it's at maximum capacity. So that is the summer months when they are going to be busy. That's also when the park's going to be busy and the boat launches are going to be busy. So it's to ensure there's sufficient parking when it's at its maximum capacity, so that they don't overflow onto the streets or don't overflow into the municipal parking lot, which just creates issues or safety issues.
Okay, would everybody like to come back to this, what Mallory said there in regard to? Does that sound okay to everybody, Pat?
So I think we were gonna say, like, we'll go with staff's recommendation, how they did their calculation. And then they can come back to us later, the hook, line, and sinker can, to negotiate a deal. If they feel that they want to carry on, and then we can say yes or no at that time to the fees of the parking, right? Am I explaining myself good enough there or not?
That's correct, right, Jeff?
Nancy, you have a
Yes.
question?
Again, the recommendation, are we supporting staff's interpretation of what is a restaurant and what should be included? Yes or no? So I vote yes, and I would move forward with the recommendation that's on the agenda.
We agree. So
Okay, I'm okay with that. And then with the understanding that they can come back and talk about the fees and that at another time.
come back and negotiate.
Yes.
Tammy? Carl?
So are we going by square footage or the amount of patrons?
It's gross floor area.
Gross floor area.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other question, and I don't know this, when you apply for a restaurant or whatever, Carl comes in there, the gross floor area, does he tell you there's a maximum capacity you can have in that gross floor area? Because
Yeah.
you get a license on how many people malt, or is it?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
correct.
I think times have changed since I was a
Okay.
restaurant owner.
So if you have 1,000 square feet, you're good for 50 people. You have 1,500 square feet, you're good for 75 people kind of deal? Rough, like just number.
I'm not sure how they do their capacity calculations, but the building department does capacity calculations and for their septic or sewage purposes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But what might be beneficial for council is take this property out of the equation. Let's not make this decision based on this property. It's going to apply to every single property going forward. Like, is a rooftop patio a restaurant or is it a deck? I think that might make the decision easier. Whatever the ramifications are after the fact can be dealt with, as Barry or as Councillor Boyce mentioned.
I almost think it should go on amount of patrons, not amount of square footage, but if I guess that bigger comes from one to the other, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and that's a requirement in your zoning bylaw. So if you want to change that, you would have to amend your zoning bylaw. Because it does say whether it's on both, whatever's more restrictive.
It's a tough one. Because again, if we're charging for it, we're collecting money for cash in lieu, other than where the hockey park is here. If we're collecting money for it, we better be making parking somewhere, which that hasn't happened in a while on that note. So again, we don't have a parking plan in town. And I don't know if you could even create one in town, because we're I call it the Sugar Bowl. But anyway, I don't know really what to say. I'm trying to help, help business in town, but also do understand, like, whether we charge them for 38 spaces or 2 spaces, we're not going to create that out in front of the restaurant either, on that note. Unless we go down the park a bit more, like I suggested earlier. So anyway.
We created that parking lot out here.
They were buying Limber, I mean, what's his name?
That was a lot of taxpayers' dollars right out here, Pat.
Yeah, but anyway, this is 2/3 of this is filled with employees and people at the arena.
Well,
Which, again, I'm not arguing against collecting fees. I'm not arguing for parking in lieu. I'm just trying to make it work for everybody. And like I said, the calculations and the determination of square area and what constitutes a wall and a floor and everything else, if somebody's eating there, then they're there. On the same note, and to comment on Tammy's comment there, yeah, we're only using it three months of the year, and then they're not. So, but we have to have the parking volume to make town work. So, and to throw another angle on it, we allow people to park on the parking spots in the main street. We don't ask them for parking in lieu for those 3 months, but we make that work in that aspect, which will let you change coming up. But again, a lot of moving parts, and I honestly think it's a gut feel for all of us in terms of just making it work for everybody on that note.
Anybody else have anything else to say? Do you have a resolution there?
I do. I'll read it. Be it resolved that council supports the municipality's interpretation of the zoning bylaw, specifically that a rooftop patio being used as a restaurant meets the definition of a restaurant, and therefore shall be included in the calculation of a gross floor area.
I'll move that.
Sorry, go ahead, Nancy. A mover to second.
I'll move.
Nancy moved, seconder. Barry, all in favor?
Okay, that
Yeah,
passes.
passed. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of planning, I believe, isn't it? Let me see. Yeah, because we finished that 01. Do you want to continue, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think we can continue and then go into closed, because we just have our reports from our local boards, so.
Yeah, good idea. All right. We have Harcourt. Tammy, you're first up.
They haven't had a meeting, but there definitely has a problem in the building, and I'm hoping that somebody has the message already that it's like a water hammer in there. And I'm hoping that they get a plumber out because it's been going on for a few weeks, maybe even more. So I hope that somebody can do something about
Especially
that.
this time of year.
Yes, it's absolutely the noisiest thing ever. So and they have a dinner coming up on the 12th of December. So it'd be nice to be able to not have that massive noise when somebody turns the water on. So if somebody could
Okay.
get,
Is this a new sound?
if it's not a new sound, I don't know what was already reported, but it's rather loud as soon as you use the water. And it doesn't matter where in the system, whether it's the kitchen or the bathrooms, it's a massive sound.
So I did hear Rob Parrish talking about that yesterday, so I think he is on it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carm?
Yeah, we had a meeting last night, Walt, but there's nothing important to report.
Okay.
Not much going on.
Okay, and Roseanne Gallery, Nancy?
Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the last meeting, but they do have their Art Squared auction on right now. It's an online auction where you can go in and bid on multiple pieces of local art. And the grade 10 and grade 7 schools, students in the schools are having, they're doing an art display at Rails End. And that's pretty exciting. And that is happening in November till December 20th, November 29th to December. And lots of good Christmas presents there at Rails End if you're shopping.
Great.
I'll read the resolution for that report.
Please.
So be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the November 2024 Rails End Gallery and Arts Center report.
Mover and seconder? Barry and Carm? All in favor? Thank you. No, BIA, Pat?
Thanks, Walt. I wasn't able to attend the last BIA meeting, but heard another resounding applause for the Christmas parade, Santa Claus parade.
Yeah.
Which is great. And they spent a lot of time looking after that and batting for it and everything else. So I think it shows. I thank everybody that volunteered for it and everybody that put it in a float. It's a great job.
Yeah, it sure was. I'm disappointed that I didn't bring that up but I know we all feel the same way. That a lot of us were there that night, and it was just unbelievable, the amount of people and the young families out and the participation by all the businesses, and so well organized. It was first class.
You bet.
Really first class.
You bet. Yeah, that's all I got to report on that. We're meeting again just before Christmas here, so.
Thank you. Okay, you got the harvest?
Oh, yeah, Harvest Halliburton, we're meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
Every quarter.
Nothing really, I don't have anything to report on the water source protection. Upper Trent, Tammy?
Yeah, I don't have anything to report.
Okay.
So I'll read the resolution to go into closed. So 1 second. 12:54. Okay, be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting at 12:54 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to section 239 subsection 2 of the Municipal Act as amended pertaining to 1, a proposed acquisition of land in the township of Dysart, which is in the Halliburton Village, and 2, a proposed disposition of land in the township of Dysart, which is in Industrial Park.
Yeah, mover and seconder. Barry and Pat. All in favor? Thank you.
Oh. You too, Wolf. We're in open now.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Back in open. Mallory?
Yeah, we have a resolution here for confirming. So be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-107, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on November 26, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Mover? Barry and Pat? All in favor?
Okay, and then to adjourn, be it resolved the council adjourn its regular meeting held on November 26, 2024 at 2:02 PM.
Mover? Tammy and Carm? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.